The city established combat teams in major areas to eliminate surrounding wild beasts. This is a high-paying but extremely dangerous job, far exceeding any other profession. The person who brought him here last time is my friend, not him. This guy is my best friend. If you're really in trouble, just look for him. He will definitely help. Xia Chun smiled bitterly. When texting, he clearly could have told Lin Shi, but for some reason, he just couldn't bring himself to say it. Perhaps he understood Lin Shi too well, knowing he was someone who hated trouble, so he didn't dare to ask. After all, in Lin Shi's eyes, a woman he had known for less than 3 months didn't mean much. She was just someone dispensable. Xia Chun nodded absent-mindedly, picking up his chopsticks to eat. His heart was heavy as he watched the heavy rain outside the window, feeling an inexplicable sense of unease. He just hoped everything would go smoothly in this world. At 3 p.m. the next day, the sky was still gloomy. Dark clouds loomed, and heavy rain pounded relentlessly against the car windows, creating a suffocating atmosphere over the entire city. Today, Lin Shi didn't bring Qing Yi and Qing Er. He took a taxi to the black market alone. Knowing Lin Shi was heading to the black market, the driver kindly reminded him, "The black market isn't open to outsiders at this hour." "I know. Just drive." Lin Shi stared intently out the window. The taxi slowly pulled up in front of a convenience store. Just as it came to a complete stop and Lin Shi was about to get out, another black car slammed on its brakes, blocking the taxi and preventing Lin Shi from opening his door. Lin Shi tilted his head and saw an arrogant-looking young man inside the car, smirking at him disdainfully. Then, he opened the door and stepped out, followed by another young man. "Young master, the black market is closed at this hour. What are we doing here?" "Idiot. Who said the black market is closed? It's actually always open, just not to nobodies without status. Who am I? A mere black market wouldn't dare deny me entry. The young master is brilliant. As long as they know you're the heir of New District 6, who would dare keep the doors closed? Glad you know." The two walked over under an umbrella, completely ignoring Lin Shi, who was trying to open his car door. He gently pushed the car next to him. In the blink of an eye, the car was kicked away like a toy. With a massive crash, the luxury car worth over 1,000,000 Federation credits was instantly deformed and completely totaled. Lin Shi slowly opened the taxi door, popped his umbrella, and stepped out. The driver had no idea what just happened, but he immediately slammed on the gas and sped off. The two who had just gotten out of the luxury car stared at the wrecked vehicle, then at Lin Shi. They didn't know whether to believe the car broke on its own or if someone had effortlessly flipped a multi-ton vehicle. Either answer was beyond imagination. "Young master, our car." "Shut your mouth. Why did you park the car there for me to see? The cost of the car is coming out of your salary." "What? Young master, didn't you tell me to park there?" "I said stop, so you stop. You dare talk back? That guy who just walked by, did someone just walk by?" "I didn't see anyone." Baiju secretly watched Lin Shi's back as he walked into the store in the rain, trembling with fear. He ordered his subordinate, "Right now. Call them and tell them to send another car to pick me up. I want to go home." When Lin Shi entered the convenience store, the scar-faced Sway was already waiting. Seeing Lin Shi, he gestured invitingly. "The boss is waiting downstairs. Just head straight down." Lin Shi nodded, entered the elevator, and went down to the basement. Bao Lai had received Sway's message and was waiting downstairs. Standing beside Bao Lai was a middle-aged white man and a blonde woman. It should be noted that since most of the population on the Sanlian continent came from breeding centers, the skin and hair colors of the people here were highly diverse. "Hello, I'm Jin Feng." The woman held out her hand, and Lin Shi shook it. Bao Lai and the other two exchanged a quick glance. Jin Feng's mental power level wasn't the highest, but what made her terrifying was that she had made great contributions in the Neutral Federation, acquiring many materials to evolve her body to Tier 3. Therefore, even though her mental power wasn't the strongest, her physique and raw strength far surpassed anyone else here. When Bao Lai met Lin Shi last time, he had secretly tested his strength. So this time, they planned to have Jin Feng make a move to probe him and seize the initiative in the upcoming negotiations. But reality was cruel. "Ah!" Jin Feng cried out, hastily pulling her hand back. Her previously fair hand was now swollen and red. Everyone, including Bao Lai, couldn't believe their eyes. Jin Feng actually got the short end of the stick. Could this young man in front of them not only possess Tier 9 mental power, but also be a high-tier evolver? You hurt my hand. Jin Feng put on a pitiful face, pretending to cry. Lin Shi said coldly. Did you call me here just to test me? If so, I'm leaving. With that, he pretended to turn around and leave. Bao Lai hurriedly stepped forward to stop him. I'm so sorry. Jin Feng took it upon herself to test your strength. I guarantee there won't be a next time. Lin Shi snorted coldly before following Bao Lai into the room. Entering the room, he noticed two other people sitting there. Bao Lai introduced them one by one. This lady is the district chief of the New North District, Jin Feng. That was the woman who had just shaken Lin Shi's hand. And this is our biggest partner, Mr. Tu Ling. The merchant smiled, his eyes narrowing into slits as he looked at Lin Shi. The other two in the room are the district chief of New District 7, Qin Tian, and the secretary of New District 9. Some people couldn't make it due to the distance, so we sent a few representatives on behalf of the Emerging Alliance to invite Mr. Lin. Emerging Alliance? Lin Shi raised an eyebrow. The district chief of New District 7, Qin Tian, said with a proud look on his face. That's right. The Federation headquarters has ruled the Sanlian continent for far too long, and the people are living in misery. We, the Emerging Alliance, were born to overthrow their rule and bring freedom and prosperity to the people of the Sanlian continent. Therefore, we will not hesitate to go to war with the Federation headquarters. I don't care about your reasons. You're saying your alliance wants to go to war with the Federation headquarters, right? Lin Shi cut Qin Tian off, speaking bluntly and decisively. This attitude made Qin Tian frown, his face showing displeasure. Yes, that's our intention, Bao Lai quickly chimed in. As long as you're willing to join our alliance, you can name any reasonable condition. As long as it's within our power, we will fulfill it. Any condition? Give me half of your weapons and ammunition, Lin Shi said bluntly. Bao Lai's face turned red. If we defeat the federal headquarters, you can have half of the remaining weapons and ammo. So, it's just an empty promise, Lin Shi sneered. No, of course not. At this moment, Mr. Tu Ling spoke up. As long as you're willing to join us, I am personally willing to offer 100 billion Federation credits as your compensation. What do you think? The others in the room looked at Tu Ling in shock. This amount was completely different from what they had agreed upon earlier. Hadn't they agreed on 50 billion? 100 billion was indeed a massive sum. Too bad I'm not short on money. Lin Shi glanced around, not missing the shock in their eyes. If Lin Shi wanted to, he could easily make an unimaginable amount of money just by selling a few vessels. It was just that flooding the market with a large number of vessels would inevitably drive down their price. Then what exactly do you want? Bao Lai and the others looked at Lin Shi anxiously. They knew that recruiting a Tier 9 Esper was incredibly difficult. They weren't afraid of Lin Shi making demands. They were worried he wouldn't want anything at all. Lin Shi thought for a moment and said, after you defeat the federal headquarters, I want half of the source matter. What? Impossible. Qin Tian jumped out of his chair. If Lin Shi had only asked for money, supplies, or other things, they could have considered it. But the source matter was already theirs. Let alone half. Even giving up a tenth would break their hearts. In fact, the very reason they were launching this war was because the federal headquarters had controlled the source matter for tens of thousands of years. As long as they obtained it, human physiques could undergo genetic evolution, achieving a leap in life itself. That was the key to the immortality they sought, which was why they were risking everything to fight. And now, Lin Shi was demanding half of the source matter right off the bat? Brother Lin, isn't asking for half a bit too much? Despite his anger, Bao Lai tried to suppress it and speak calmly. Lin Shi tilted his head, looking at him with a faint smile. Too much? I don't think so at all. If you lose, not only will you get zero source matter, but you won't even keep your lives. Given that, do you still think me asking for half is a lot? Besides, you were the one who said I could ask for anything. Lin Shi's question left Bao Lai speechless. It was true he had said that, but it was just empty talk. What makes you think we'll lose? Duan Ling, the secretary of the New Ninth District, stood up abruptly, glaring at Lin Shi and questioning him. Just based on, Lin Shi blinked, looking at Duan Ling's furious expression, the corners of his mouth curling up slightly. If I choose to side with the federal headquarters, do you think you'll still have a chance of winning? As soon as the words fell, The room erupted in chaos. Everyone stood up, and some even drew their weapons. The tension reached its peak. Only Lin Shi remained seated, his expression calm, as if the whole situation had nothing to do with him. He casually brushed his hair and said, "I must remind you, don't forget that I'm not just a Tier 9 Esper. My physical strength is nothing to scoff at either. So, if you plan to use weapons against me, I won't hold back." Thinking of Lin Shi's terrifying mental power and his ability to suppress Qin Feng's strength earlier, Bao Lai didn't dare act rashly. He glared fiercely at the person who had just drawn their weapon. He signaled for him to put the weapon down. But the intense pressure radiating from Lin Shi terrified Duan Ling. As an Esper, his sharp instincts warned him of the lurking danger, making it impossible for him to lower his weapon. This guy clearly doesn't want to cooperate with us, and his background is unknown. If he really joins the federal headquarters, it will be extremely disadvantageous for us. Everyone, why don't we kill him right here and now? After all, with the armed support of the black market and the combined strength of everyone here, I believe. But before he could finish his sentence, a bloody hole suddenly appeared on his forehead. Qin Tian, Qin Feng, and Mr. Tu Ling. None of the three saw when Lin Shi made his move. They stood like stone statues, their eyes blankly staring at the falling corpse of Secretary Duan Ling. Time seemed to freeze, and even breathing became difficult. No one dared to move an inch. Even Bao Lai, the strongest person present, didn't dare act recklessly. Lin Shi gently opened his fingers, revealing a few glass shards pinched between them. His eyes were as calm as water, yet they carried an invisible, suffocating pressure that locked onto the four tense people in the room. He spoke slowly. "I am very serious about cooperating with you. If I had any ill intentions toward you, none of you would leave this room alive. So I advise you not to try any little tricks." Cold sweat dripped down Balya's forehead. He knew Lin Shi was telling the truth. Just now, even though he could see the trajectory of the glass shard, at such a close distance, even with his abilities, it would have been hard to dodge completely. Moreover, he could sense that the other party had only used a fraction of his strength, not his full power. Not to mention, in terms of mental power tier, he was completely suppressed. No matter how well prepared he was, at this moment, Bao Lai had lost all his confidence. The atmosphere made the four of them restless. "Sit down." Bao Lai was the first to break the awkward tension, pointing at Secretary Duan Ling's corpse on the floor. "Humph. Duan Ling didn't come in person, but sent someone to instigate us against Brother Lin. He truly deserved to die. Men, drag this corpse out." As soon as he spoke, two people immediately entered from the door and quickly carried Secretary Duan Ling's body out. The entire process was eerily quiet. No one made a sound. It wasn't until the body was cleared away that Bao Lai took a deep breath and sat down. The others followed suit, but everyone looked uncomfortable, as if sitting on pins and needles. They began to realize that their previous optimism about cooperating with a Tier 9 Esper was a mistake. The other party possessed terrifying strength, and whether to cooperate or not was entirely up to him. Therefore, despite their careful preparations, they were at an absolute disadvantage, with almost no say in the matter. Just as Lin Shi had said, he was free to choose his faction. The only difference was the price each side was willing to pay. Initially, they planned to use Federation credits and supplies to persuade him to cooperate. If that didn't work, they would just borrow his reputation for a while and pay him a fee. But now, the other party proved to be much shrewder than them. If they didn't cooperate with Lin Shi, he would side with the federal headquarters. Their initial odds of winning would drop by at least 10%. This was fatal for a war where forces were originally balanced. "Brother Lin, please state your conditions. We need to consider them." Bao Lai observed Lin Shi's expression. The initial arrogance and confidence had vanished from his face. Lin Shi nodded. "Of course, you can consider them. Wait until I finish stating my conditions, then you can discuss. I'm not forcing anyone. Buying and selling is voluntary. That was just my first condition. Now, listen to the second." "There's a second condition?" The four looked at each other, their faces showing clear helplessness and bitterness. "Please speak." "My second condition is that after the war ends, aside from the source matter outside the federal headquarters, I get to choose 3 types of spoils of war, including but not limited to weapons, high-tech products, and high-tier vessels." This condition was much easier to accept than the first. At this moment, they hadn't yet realized that Lin Shi's condition actually encompassed taking control of the federal headquarters spatial tunnel. Next is the third condition, Lin Shi continued. There's a third condition? Qin Tian lost his composure a bit. If Lin Shi hadn't just effortlessly killed someone, he would have blurted out, "Aren't you asking for too much?" Lin Shi glanced at Qin Tian. That single look made Qin Tian feel like he had fallen into an ice cellar, not daring to show any more dissatisfaction. My third condition is that I hope this war minimizes casualties among civilians. Lin Shi suddenly remembered Xia Chun's words. I hope this war minimizes casualties among civilians. After all, our ancestors were also people of the Sanlian continent. The civilians are innocent. Lin Shi, if possible, please help them. This condition didn't harm Lin Shi in any way, but for Bao Lai and the others, it was very difficult to implement. Because any large-scale destructive weapon they used would inevitably affect civilians. Little handsome brother, this request is a bit too much, isn't it? What war doesn't have casualties? Qin Feng said in a coquettish tone. Lin Shi replied, That's your problem. I'm just stating my conditions. As long as you agree to these 3 conditions, I will help you win. We need to discuss this. Lin Shi left the black market. He had achieved his goal. Next, he just had to see how many of his conditions the other party could accept. Undoubtedly, they would definitely choose to cooperate with him, because they couldn't risk Lin Shi helping the enemy. In the wasteland, the sky was gloomy, and thick dark clouds seemed ready to crush the world. Bean-sized raindrops poured down, growing fiercer by the minute, as if trying to drown heaven and earth. This time, 2 squads set out together for a coordinated hunt of desolate beasts. Each squad consisted of official members and logistics personnel, totaling 18 people. After leaving the inner city for a distance, they got out of their vehicles and began walking. In the wasteland, if a vehicle drove too fast and encountered a desolate beast, it would be very hard to react, potentially leading to getting trapped in the car and attacked. The terrifying strength and speed of desolate beasts were not something ordinary vehicles could withstand. Therefore, hunting squads usually left their vehicles at a fixed location and proceeded on foot to find stray desolate beasts. Although this method was less efficient, it minimized casualties. Everyone wore raincoats, advancing into the foggy, rain-swept wasteland. Half a day later, a squad member complained, "This damn weather. Why does it always rain every time it's our 2 squads' turn to hunt?" Don't worry. It's just a coincidence that it's raining on our shift this month. Plus, the heavy rain helps hide our scent, making it harder for the desolate beasts to spot us. The captain of Squad 3 said, but finding desolate beasts in this weather is tough too. Captain, idiot, use your mental power to look. Don't use your eyes. Desolate beasts are huge. Just use your mental power to observe where the rain is falling unnaturally, and you'll find their tracks. Xia Chun silently followed the team, vigilantly using his mental power to scan the surroundings. The rain was too heavy. Even wearing a raincoat, every drop felt like a piercing sting. Following the Squad 3 captain's method, an hour later, they finally spotted their first desolate beast. Captain, a stray desolate beast. A catch on the very first day? Approach carefully and check its tier. Quickly, the silhouette of the desolate beast appeared in the rain. From its appearance and the patterns on its skin, everyone recognized it as a Tier 3 desolate beast. We can handle a Tier 3. Prepare for battle. Xia Chun, you go first, the Squad 3 captain ordered. Xia Chun looked in a different direction through the rain, remaining motionless. Xia Chun, did you hear me? I ordered you to go first. The Squad 3 captain frowned, glaring at Xia Chun. His eyes were full of malice. Clearly, Xia Chun, an extraordinary Tier 3 Esper, was threatening the positions of some people in the squad. Xia Chun's indifferent attitude made the captain even angrier, but Xia Chun kept staring to the right, not moving an inch. Seeing Xia Chun disobeying orders, the Squad 3 captain walked up behind him and grabbed his collar. But right at that moment, Xia Chun moved. He dodged the captain's hand and spoke up. We're surrounded. Run. Then he turned and sprinted into the rain. Everyone was startled and immediately released their full mental power to scan the surroundings. But within the range of their mental power, there was nothing unusual. Huh. Damn it. This new guy of yours is useless. They said he's a Tier 3 Esper, but he ran away before the fight even started. Rin-Tu was the captain of Squad 3. Xia Chun's disobedience and fleeing made Rin-Tu lose face in front of the other squads. His face darkened as he roared in Xia Chun's direction. "Stop right there. If you run any further, I'll kill you." But Xia Chun's figure had already vanished into the rain. "Captain, what do we do? This bastard Xia Chun deserted on his first mission. When we get back, I'll report him to headquarters and have him fired." "Ignore him. Continue the mission. I'll take the lead. The rest of you follow closely. Number 2, you keep watch on the perimeter." Rin-Tu quickly took command. Everyone surrounded the desolate beast, using their mental power to attack. One squad member stood guard on the perimeter as arranged. Not long after, while everyone was focused on the battle, Number 2, the perimeter guard, looked as if he had seen something terrifying. His mouth hung open as he trembled. "Captain, we're surrounded." Number 2's voice was drowned out by the heavy rain. The others were too engrossed in fighting the desolate beast to hear anything. However, it didn't take long for Rin-Tu's group to finish off the Tier 3 desolate beast in front of them. He then went to look for Number 2, who was supposed to be on guard duty, but the man was nowhere to be seen. Where did the guy on guard duty go? Everyone spread out their mental power and quickly noticed something was wrong. Because of the heavy rain and thick fog, they couldn't see clearly beyond a few hundred meters. But they discovered that within a radius of several hundred meters, the raindrops seemed to be blocked by an invisible, thick, and towering wall. This phenomenon was exactly what their captain had described when talking about being surrounded by desolate beasts. What was terrifying and despair-inducing was that for several kilometers around them, the exact same scene was playing out. They were surrounded by a horde of desolate beasts. Suddenly, the first desolate beast emerged from the rain. It was holding a bloody corpse, the body of the guard from just now. Following this desolate beast, a second, a third, a fourth. Dozens of desolate beasts emerged from the thick fog. There were countless other desolate beasts that the naked eye couldn't even see. Why are there so many desolate beasts here? "Captain, what do we do?" We're really surrounded by desolate beasts." "Damn it. How did Xia Chun spot so many desolate beasts? Why didn't we notice them earlier?" Everyone huddled together, trembling as they looked at the Tier 3, Tier 4, and even Tier 5 desolate beasts appearing in their line of sight. "They're charging at us." Run. I don't want to die. Help. Don't come any closer." Report to headquarters. We've discovered, at a location outside the inner city." Beep, beep, beep. Leaving the black market and returning to his villa, Lin Shi suddenly felt his eyelid twitch, as if something bad was about to happen. He stood calmly by the window, watching the torrential rain that had been pouring for 2 days, an inexplicable sense of unease rising in his heart. The fierce rain battered the window, seemingly warning him of something. Just as Lin Shi was deep in thought, an ear-piercing alarm suddenly blared in his ears. This sound was completely different from the mental alarm he had triggered last time. It was sharper, more piercing, like the roar of an enraged, desolate beast, making one's ears ache. The sound seemed to want to tear through eardrums, making it impossible for anyone to ignore the fear and tension it brought. Lin Shi was startled, and his mental power surged outward like a tide toward the outside of the city. It wasn't just Lin Shi. He could feel hundreds of other mental power signatures of varying strengths also extending outside the city. He saw that outside the city walls, hundreds of desolate beasts were charging toward the new 7th district through the rain. The moment the alarm sounded, the guards hurriedly shut the city gates tight. Countless cannons appeared on the city walls, and blinding light erupted from their muzzles. A second later, the roar of artillery echoed throughout the inner city, deafeningly loud. The barrage of shells created deep craters in the ground outside the city, but it only slowed the desolate beasts' advance. The beasts that were knocked down by the blasts immediately got back up, their fur completely unscathed, and continued charging at the city walls. Boom! With a massive crash, the first desolate beast slammed into the city wall. The originally sturdy wall was dented by the impact, leaving a faint mark. But that was only the beginning. Hundreds of desolate beasts crashed into the wall, the booming sounds shaking everyone's eardrums. Desolate beasts. Desolate beast attack. Desolate beast attack. Mankind. The guards near the city gates, after securing the main doors, frantically used their communication devices to call for help. The patrols on the city walls also struggled to stand firm under the relentless impacts, and some unlucky ones even fell off. The civilians near the walls panicked and fled in all directions. The entire inner city was plunged into chaos and fear. Lin sure didn't expect that just a few hundred desolate beasts could cause such extreme panic. Normally, with combat teams constantly hunting them, desolate beasts rarely got close to the inner city. At the very least, the safe zone around the city extended for hundreds of kilometers. The sudden appearance of hundreds of desolate beasts attacking the city like this would cause panic in any city. Qing Yi and Qing Er knocked on the door and quickly came to Lin Shu's side. Master, it's a level 7 alert. There are tier 7 desolate beasts attacking the city. Should we take the airship and leave? Lin Shu then noticed that many vehicles were speeding toward the airship port, seemingly preparing to evacuate. It's just a few hundred desolate beasts. Why run? Lin Shu replied calmly. Qing Yi and Qing Er exchanged a glance. Just a few hundred? The two didn't fully understand Lin Shu's true strength. They only knew he was highly regarded by Qing Yun and was a very important person. They knew the offensive power of desolate beasts was immense, especially tier 7 ones. It usually took at least 2 tier 7 espers or 1 tier 8 esper to kill a single tier 7 desolate beast. Right now, it was unknown how many tier 7 desolate beasts were out there. If there were more than 2, it would be enough to cause severe damage to the city walls. The wealthy and powerful were already preparing to flee on airships. Because they knew that once an airship took off, trying to leave later would be as hard as ascending to heaven. I'll go take a look. What Lin Shu was worried about wasn't the few hundred desolate beasts, but the fact that Xia Chun had gone outside the city. He stepped out into the rain. The rain hadn't stopped, and the alarms blared continuously. The entire inner city was engulfed in a tense atmosphere. Chaos began to spread. Many people ran wildly in the rain, but most hid in their homes, fearfully awaiting their fate. Lin Shu didn't focus his mental power around the inner city, but quickly expanded it into the wilderness, searching for Xia Chun. Soon enough, Lin Shu spotted Xia Chun sprinting across the wasteland. Xia Chun was running toward the city gates, but they were already shut tight. From the panicked expressions of the guards, it was clear they absolutely wouldn't open the gates until the desolate beasts were subdued. Lin Shu immediately used the treasure basin to contact Xia Chun, pointing him in a different direction. Seeing the tracks of numerous desolate beasts a few kilometers away from Xia Chun, Lin Shu muttered, "Looks like it's not just a few hundred. All right, before the war starts, let me see how the humans of this world deal with desolate beasts." Lin Shu flagged down a taxi, ignoring the driver's terrified expression, and drove the car himself into the heavy rain, heading toward the city walls. Inside the city, military vehicles, each equipped with mental power tech, were speeding toward the city walls where the desolate beasts were attacking. The beast assault was still causing chaos, especially in sparsely populated residential areas, where looting and murder were taking place. Taking advantage of the city's chaos, many opportunists were running rampant. A loud crash echoed as Su Xiu screamed, realizing her door had been smashed open. Several fierce-looking men barged in, holding weapons and wearing greedy smirks. "Who are you? How dare you break into my house?" Su Xiu said fearfully. "Cut the crap. Hand over your ID card," a vicious man barked. Su Xiu clenched her fists but still handed over her ID card. She knew these were thugs taking advantage of the crisis to loot. If she didn't hand it over, they might kill her. "Wow, this chick is pretty loaded, boss. There's over a few 100,000 on this card. Search the place thoroughly and see if there's anything else of value." Su Xiu shrank into a corner, letting them ransack the room. Suddenly, one of the thugs stared at Su Xiu, sizing her up from head to toe. "Boss, this chick has a pretty nice figure." Saying that, he approached Su Xiu. Terrified, Su Xiu accidentally pulled down her veil. A second later, a hideous, scarred half-face was revealed. "Holy shit, it's a monster." Seeing Su Xiu's face, the thug immediately jumped back in shock. "Let's go? Get out of here, quick," the leader ordered. They came fast and left just as fast. Su Xiu quickly closed the door, using a few cabinets to block the broken entrance, before collapsing to the floor in exhaustion, sobbing uncontrollably. Xia Chun, Xia Chun, you have to come back safely. At this moment, Xia Chun was running in the direction Lin Shi had pointed out. With his Tier 7 mental power, he easily detected the desolate beasts attacking the inner city. Along the way, Xia Chun had already killed over 100 desolate beasts, but the more he killed, the more kept coming. Xia Chun sprinted to the base of the city wall. Up on the wall, the cold cannons had rotated their barrels but hadn't fired yet because no desolate beasts were in range. Suddenly, a cable dropped down from the city wall. Xia Chun grabbed it without hesitation. A second later, a powerful force pulled him up the wall. Xia Chun panted heavily. Lin Shi, thank goodness you're still here. There are too many desolate beasts outside. I estimate there are at least a few thousand. Didn't they say the Sanlian continent has been hunting desolate beasts for tens of thousands of years? Why are there suddenly so many? Lin Shi retracted the cable into his spatial storage. These desolate beasts didn't just breed naturally. Take a guess why so many of them appeared right when the Sanlian continent is about to have a civil war. Xia Chun pondered deeply. Could someone be controlling them? Not a person. Lin Shi observed the rain, the sheer number of desolate beasts within it gradually becoming clear. This planet has a consciousness. Boom, boom, boom. Continuous explosions deafened the ears, and the entire area shook violently. It felt like the earth was tearing apart. Even hundreds of meters underground in the black market, the intense tremors from the battle outside could be clearly felt. A scar-faced man, a Shui, flushed with anxiety, pushed open the door to Balya's office. Huff, huff. Boss, desolate beasts are attacking the city. Balai was intently watching the real-time combat footage on his optical brain. Hearing a Shui's report, he merely nodded, indicating he knew. Seeing Balai so unusually calm, a Shui was a bit confused but still asked, Boss, should we relocate to another district? Balai shook his head. No need. Balya's eyes were gravely fixed on the screen, where squads of soldiers were launching mental power attacks. He said solemnly, I just contacted the new North District and the new Ninth District. Desolate beasts have appeared there too. If every district is under attack, going anywhere else is the same. What? How is that possible? Aren't desolate beasts devoid of intelligence? How could they attack multiple inner cities at the same time? Shui was shocked. If desolate beasts have no intelligence, then how do you explain the great desolate beast war 10,000 years ago? Shui's jaw dropped in disbelief. You mean, the Great War 10,000 years ago that caused 6 inner cities to fall, leading the Federation to establish the new districts? It's just a guess. Maybe it's just a horde of desolate beasts that lost their way in the heavy rain. If that's the case, we have even less reason to move. At the very least, our inner city's overall strength is definitely not inferior to the new first district. Baolai turned off the optical brain. He stood up, a flash of realization in his eyes as he thought of something. A Tier 9 Esper. Meanwhile, on the city walls, the battle had reached a critical stage. Desolate beasts surged forward like a tide, and the soldiers on the walls desperately used their mental power to eliminate them. Even when their mental power was depleted and they fell unconscious, they spared no effort. Because they knew that if the city walls fell, they would be like chickens in a coop broken into by a weasel, with nowhere to hide. Streams of mental power agitated the air, forming an invisible defensive wall. Low-tier desolate beasts fell at the base of the wall, but more high-tier desolate beasts continuously trampled over the corpses of their kin, charging forward. These desolate beasts seemed to know no fear and feel no pain, ferocious and suicidal, using their sharp claws and tough hides to tear at that lifeline of defense. Lin Shi said with a serious expression, Qingzhou previously hypothesized that the appearance of these desolate beasts might stem from the planet's defense mechanism. Just like how the planetary Willon Blue star caused natural disasters for humanity. Otherwise, their origins can't be explained. It's just that this hypothesis hasn't been proven yet, because both Qingzhou and I have tried probing with our mental power, but we didn't detect any mental energy fluctuations at the planet's core. Xia Chun had heard Lin Shi mention Qingzhou before, but he never expected this planet to have its own consciousness. Now, Looking at the massive horde of desolate beasts approaching from afar, he was filled with shock and confusion. A planet with a consciousness, turning into monsters to attack humanity? Why is it like this? Xiachun muttered to himself. He truly couldn't understand why the planet would act this way. Lin Shi shook his head, indicating he didn't know either. Actually, Qingzhou has been pondering this issue for a long time, but he still hasn't found an exact answer. Facing such a massive horde of desolate beasts, Xiachun turned and asked, "Should we intervene?" Lin Shi replied slowly, "Let's observe the situation first." Roar! A giant desolate beast slammed hard into the city wall. The cracks on the already damaged wall widened even further. It was unknown what special metallic concrete this wall was made of to withstand the attacks of such a massive beast horde. Lin Shi looked into the distance, where the wall was packed with soldiers. At this moment, several people were operating a lifting device, carefully transporting a strange object onto the wall. From afar, the object looked like a giant megaphone, its unique shape drawing much attention. Soon after, the district chief of the new 7th district, Qin Tian, wearing a silver gleaming helmet, walked steadily toward that mysterious megaphone-like device. When Qin Tian stood in front of the megaphone, an incredibly powerful wave of mental power instantly surged from it like a waterfall, sweeping toward the beast horde below the wall. In the blink of an eye, the beast horde below was swept away as if by a gale, collapsing to the ground unable to rise. Is that a mental power amplifier? Xiachun was astonished. Qin Tian only had Tier 6 mental power, but the mental power strike just now was as powerful as a Tier 7's. Without a doubt, both the helmet Qin Tian wore and that strange megaphone device had the miraculous effect of amplifying mental power. With this kind of weapon, the city walls wouldn't fall anytime soon. Let's go. We're not needed here anymore. Lin Shi pulled Xiachun down from the city wall and headed back to the inner city. Even without them, the new 7th district wouldn't be overrun by desolate beasts this time, because Lin Shi had noticed that the beast horde in the distance was already beginning to retreat. After Lin Shi and Xiachun left, the captain of the guard, Yan Huan, approached Qin Tian and said, "Sir, they've left. Those two violated regulations by going up on the city wall. Shouldn't we arrest them?" Qin Tian's face was pale. He gripped his helmet tightly, glancing in the direction Lin Shi had left, a look of wariness flashing in his eyes. "No need. Take a trip to the black market and ask the master of the black market to lend a hand." "Yes, sir." Yan Huan stepped down from the wall and signaled to a subordinate. "Did you get a picture of those two on the wall just now?" "Yes, Captain." Yan Huan snorted coldly. "Send their files to me." Daring to violate inner-city security regulations and trespassing on the city wall. With the situation being so critical, the district chief might not pursue this minor issue, but rules are rules. "Captain, one of their files shows he seems to be a Tier 5. We could only find his name here. The other one is a subordinate from our Squad 3. But wasn't that squad supposed to be out hunting today? Why is he in the city? Hand over all the documents and portraits to me. Go quickly. I'm stepping out for a bit. Protect the district chief well." Entering the city, Xiachun parted ways with Lin Shi. Lin Shi had intended to tell Xiachun to stay at his place for the time being, but Xiachun declined. Upon returning to the city, Xiachun realized the city was in utter chaos. An inexplicable sense of anxiety rose in his heart, causing him to unconsciously speed up, heading toward his usual apartment. At the same time, he focused his mind, quickly releasing powerful mental energy to scan the situation in the apartment building first. Instantly, he discovered the building had been looted, but when he saw that familiar figure was still safe and sound. Xiachun, even he himself didn't realize it, visibly relaxed, the tension leaving his face. But just a second after he let his guard down, several thugs armed with knives suddenly appeared. They blocked his path. These thugs looked ferocious, the blood on their blades proving that Xiachun wasn't their first target. A murderous-looking thug bared his teeth and glared. "Kid, hand over your ID card, or don't even dream of leaving here alive." Xiachun quickly swept his mental power over these men who had just left the apartment building. Seeing the tragic scenes in the homes of the other families, his eyes turned ice cold. "If you were just robbing, why did you kill them?" "Huh? Boss, this kid hasn't even grown all his hair yet. and he's asking why we kill people. Cut the crap. Kill him. Xia Chun slightly adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose. That small movement exuded an invisible killing intent. Immediately after, a powerful surge of mental energy, like an invisible sword, pierced through the thugs rushing at him with blinding speed. The thugs who had just taken the lives of innocent civilians were instantly killed. Meanwhile, in another apartment, the shockwaves from the fierce battle outside shook the old, dilapidated building. It felt like it was about to collapse. The rotting ceiling lamp swayed before crashing down. Su Xiu huddled in the corner, hugging her knees, tears streaming down her cheeks. Please, gods of legend, please hear my sincere prayer. Please let Xia Chun return safely. I beg you, don't let anything happen to him. Su Xiu swore. From now on, I will never resent the person who ruined my face. I will never hate anyone who has treated me poorly. I am willing to spend the rest of my life being a good person, and I am willing to be ugly for the rest of my life. The desolate beasts attacking the city. The most dangerous place wasn't for the soldiers fighting the beasts on the walls, but for the people fleeing the inner city. Outside the city, there was no army, no walls to protect them, only a terrifying, ferocious horde of beasts. Su Xiu didn't dare think about the fate of the soldiers sacrificing themselves outside the city. Thinking of the happy days spent by Xia Chun's side, her tears flowed endlessly. This was a joy she had never experienced since birth. Xia Chun didn't look at her differently because of her appearance, nor did he despise her. Xia Chun was the best person in the world. Su Xiu knelt on the floor, sobbing. Please let Xia Chun return safely. If I am not worthy of being in his life, please take me instead. Don't take Xia Chun. He is a good person. Knock, knock. As Su Xiu was praying sincerely, a knock on the door startled her. Thinking it was the robbers returning, she quickly wiped her tears, her eyes instantly turning resolute. She grabbed a wooden stick hidden behind the door and shouted, trembling. Didn't you just come here? There's nothing left in my house. It's me. Xia Chun's voice came from outside. Xia Chun. Hearing his voice, Su Xiu couldn't believe her ears. The young girl hurriedly pushed aside the pile of things blocking the door. Seeing the person standing there was exactly the one she had been praying for. Her tears flowed even harder. Su Xiu couldn't help but throw herself into Xia Chun's arms. Thank goodness. Sob. You're okay. Thank goodness. Xia Chun opened his arms, letting the soft girl press into his embrace. His heart suddenly pounded. An unprecedented feeling washed over him. The small body in his arms transmitted warmth and a tight grip, making Xia Chun feel more clearly than ever before that he was needed and worried about. An uncontrollable urge rose from the bottom of his heart, making him want to let go of everything and just hold Su Xiu tightly. But Xia Chun's reason held firm. He just said softly to comfort her, I'm fine. Don't cry. Sob. Bad men just came. The bad men took all our money. Sob. Over a few $100,000. It's all gone. That was all we had. Hearing Xia Chun's comfort, Su Xiu didn't stop crying. Instead, she cried even harder. Not because of the lost money, but because the anxiety and helplessness she had suppressed for so long finally burst out upon seeing the person she longed for most. It's okay. We'll get the money back. I've already killed those men. Su Xiu slowly let go of Xia Chun, her emotions gradually calming down. Those bad men, you killed them all. Looking at the girl's teary eyes, Xia Chun's eyes flickered, and he nodded slightly. Let's go inside first. Only then did Su Xiu realize she was hugging Xia Chun. She immediately blushed and stepped out of his embrace, quickly going back into the room. The room was a mess, and the two of them cleaned it up together. By the time they finished, the booming crashes from outside the city had also stopped. Not long after, a commotion arose outside. Everyone stay in your homes. Do not come out. We are conducting an inspection. Su Xiu quickly ran to the hallway and looked outside. It's the inner city guards. These guys are so annoying. Why didn't they come a bit earlier? Xia Chun frowned, using his mental power to observe the guard squad approaching the apartment building. He raised an eyebrow. Go inside first. Su Xiu looked at Xia Chun in confusion. What's wrong? These people seem to be coming for me. My sudden return to the city must have been discovered. It's fine. I'll go explain it to them. Before he finished speaking, a loud knocking came from the door. Bang, bang, bang. Open up. Open the door, hurry. Xiao-chun opened the newly repaired door. You're Xiao-chun, right? Come with us. Lin Shi returned to the villa, and Qing Yi and Qing Er immediately came to check on him. Master, it's chaotic outside, and there are no guards maintaining order in the city. Lin Shi nodded, indicating he knew. He had killed a few robbers blocking his way on the way back. Not long after he returned to the villa, the booming crashes outside the inner city echoed again. Lin Shi retracted his mental power from outside the city. After leaving behind a pile of corpses, the beast horde retreated. Due to the nature of desolate beasts, Lin Shi couldn't determine if there was an alpha-like entity leading the pack. But the fact that these beasts were organized was undeniable. If the beast horde attacked the city again, Lin Shi decided he would go outside to investigate. Back in his room, Lin Shi quickly took a hot shower. Just as he sat down and opened a book about the Sonlian continent, he heard urgent knocking from downstairs. Qing Er got up to open the door. The guard standing there swept a sharp gaze over the villa's interior, then asked sternly, "Which one of you is Lin Shi? Come with us immediately." Qing Yi was about to call Lin Shi when he saw Lin Shi already coming downstairs. He walked to the door, looking calmly at the row of guards. "What's the matter?" Lin Shi asked calmly. One guard glanced at the optical brain in his hand, confirmed the ID info, and said bluntly, "You're Lin Shi, right? According to inner-city security laws, you violated relevant regulations. Please come with us to cooperate with the investigation." "Which regulation did I violate?" Lin Shi's voice remained calm, but a hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. "You trespassed on a critical military area, the city wall, during combat. This is a serious violation. We have the right to arrest you," the guard replied forcefully. "So, are you only planning to arrest me? You're talking about Xiao-chun, right? Deserting his comrades and fleeing back to the city, plus violating regulations by trespassing on a critical military area. His punishment will be much heavier than yours," the guard declared loudly. "Are these orders from your district chief?" A hint of suspicion flashed in Lin Shi's eyes. "Cut the chatter. This is an order from our guard captain. Come here and arrest him." At the command, several guards immediately rushed forward to make the arrest. Seeing this, Qing Yi and Qing Er quickly stepped in front of Lin Shi, their expressions resolute. "Resisting arrest, huh? Resisting arrest means shoot to kill." 3 laser guns aimed straight at Lin Shi, Qing Yi, and Qing Er. The atmosphere instantly grew tense to the extreme. Lin Shi signaled for Qing Yi and Qing Er to step back, then said to the guards, "I can go with you, but later, you'll be crying and begging me to come back." The guard remained indifferent, thinking Lin Shi was just bluffing, and sneered disdainfully. "Who do you think you are? Our inner city isn't lacking in Tier 5 espers. Take him away. I'll walk myself. I don't need you to carry me." Lin Shi turned to look at Qing Yi and Qing Er. "Wait for me here. I'll be back soon." With that, Lin Shi walked toward the guard vehicle. Not long after, 2 guard vehicles arrived at the Central Guard headquarters almost simultaneously, one after the other. A person stepped out of the other vehicle. It was Xiao-chun. Xiao-chun saw Lin Shi also getting out of a car and gave a bitter smile. Xiao-chun was being escorted, wearing a set of electronic cuffs on his wrists. "What are you standing around for? Move." The 2 groups met. The guard behind Xiao-chun shoved him roughly, but couldn't budge him. Angered, the guard pressed a remote control in his hand. A second later, Xiao-chun stumbled, struggling in discomfort. It was an electronic shock cuff. "Let him go." Lin Shi frowned, pointing at Xiao-chun and ordering the guards. The guards on both sides looked at each other, pretending not to see Lin Shi. The guard escorting Xiao-chun complained, "Why didn't you cuff him?" The guards with Lin Shi smiled awkwardly. They had intended to, but seeing that his file listed him as a Tier 5 esper, combined with his imposing aura, they felt it wasn't worth the trouble, so they skipped it. Xiao-chun endured the stinging pain of the electric shock, struggling to stand straight. He shook his head slightly at Lin Shi, his voice firm. "I am a member of the combat squad. You have no right to use unauthorized punishment on me. Only the squad captain has the authority to discipline me." He said this both to the guards in front of him and to Lin Shi. Xiao-chun knew Lin Shi was angry. If he didn't stop him, something bad was going to happen. But when the guards behind Xiao-chun heard him mention the combat squad captain, their faces darkened. They knew that both the guard squad and the combat squad belonged to the new 7th District government, But the combat squad enjoyed extremely high pay and benefits. In contrast, their own salaries were meager, while their living expenses were double. Naturally, the relationship between the two departments was poor. This kid is stubborn. Still trying to scare me with the combat squad? When did I ever use punishment on you? Did anyone see? Did you guys see anything? The other guards immediately looked away. The guard sneered viciously and was about to press the remote again, unnoticed by anyone. Lin Shi's eyes had already turned ice cold. I said, let him go. Lin Shi's voice was calm, but left no room for argument. No one saw how Lin Shi moved. He grabbed the wrist of the guard holding the remote and gave it a light twist. The remote fell to the ground. A second later, the guard screamed in agony. My hand. He attacked a guard. Kill him. Kill him. His wrist was twisted at a horrifying angle. Seeing this, the other guards drew their weapons and aimed them at Lin Shi. Facing the weapons, Lin Shi showed no fear. He grabbed the electronic cuffs on Xia Chun's wrists and applied a little force. With a crack, the seemingly indestructible electronic cuffs snapped in half. This shocking scene left the guards dumbfounded, their pupils shrinking in disbelief. Lin Shi had clearly just broken the specially made cuffs with his bare hands, leaving them utterly shaken. Not good. These two are highly dangerous. Call for backup immediately. One guard snapped out of it and shouted. This was the police station entrance. The other guards also seemed to wake up and immediately sprang into action. Soon after, a large group of fully armed guards poured out of the station. Xia Chun pulled his hands out of the broken cuffs and smiled bitterly at Lin Shi. Did you really have to make such a scene? The two of them had only stood on the city wall for a moment. It wasn't a big deal. Plus, one was a combat squad member and the other a Tier 5 Esper. Even if they were punished, it wouldn't be anything severe. At worst, Xia Chun might be targeted by the other party, but to him, a little humiliation meant nothing. Of course, I prefer to end things quickly and cleanly. Lin Shi rolled his wrists. You too. Put your hands up and get on the ground immediately, or we will open fire. A guard shouted orders at Lin Shi and Xia Chun. Let me handle this. Xia Chun stepped forward. Instantly, a wave of mental energy radiated from him, sweeping toward the guards. But to his surprise, it had no effect. The aggressive guards who had escorted them were knocked down, but the rest who had just come out of the station only swayed slightly, completely unharmed. Mental power defense helmets? Xia Chun realized these people were all wearing specially made helmets, his voice revealing surprise and confusion. Right? You must have used your full strength, Lin Shi said. In this world, almost everyone had mental power. It was impossible for the official guard squad not to have countermeasures. Xia Chun was still too soft-hearted. Fire. Following a roar, the remaining guards realized Lin Shi and Xia Chun were dangerous and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Instantly, dozens of blinding laser beams rained down on the two. Lin Shi remained calm. Seeing the deadly beams approaching, Xia Chun instinctively stepped in front of Lin Shi without hesitation. But the unexpected happened. The fierce laser beams seemed to hit an invisible wall, vanishing just a meter away from them. Xia Chun was stunned, then immediately understood. He turned to Lin Shi. Is this your physical ability? Lin Shi nodded slightly, acknowledging it. Xia Chun was secretly amazed, while the guards were completely dumbfounded, their eyes wide in disbelief at the scene before them. A volley of laser fire, and these two were completely unharmed. It was as if they had seen a ghost. Soon after, someone with trembling hands pulled the trigger again, trying to attack once more. But no matter how they fired, the shots were like stones sinking into the ocean, having no effect whatsoever. The laser beams simply vanished when they got within a meter of the two, causing no damage at all. What's going on? A guard said in panic. Why aren't the shots working? Are the guns broken? Another muttered to himself, doubting his own weapon. The tense atmosphere suddenly turned chaotic. What's going on here? A voice rang out from behind the guards. It was the guard captain, Yan Huan. Yan Huan had just completed the task assigned by the district chief and returned. Seeing the chaotic scene at the gate, he guessed something major had happened. It wasn't until he saw Lin Shi and Xia Chun surrounded by layers of guards that he understood what was going on. Captain, those two resisted arrest and attacked guards. A guard immediately reported to Yan Huan. Resisting arrest? And assaulting officers? Why haven't you arrested them yet? Yan Huan barked coldly. The guards escorting Yan Huan immediately joined the others in surrounding Lin Shi and Xia Chun. Lin Shi and Xia Chun were tightly encircled by 3 layers of guards. The scene was incredibly intimidating. There's something weird about these two. Our attacks aren't doing any damage to them. A guard who had just attacked, his face pale, recounted the whole incident to Yan Huan. Hearing this, Yan Huan immediately snatched a laser gun from a guard next to him and fired at Xia Chun without hesitation. As expected, just like the guard had said, the laser beam seemed to be blocked by some mysterious object. Is this a new type of energy shield? Yan Huan muttered in astonishment. He initially thought the two had activated a new type of personal energy shield, but based on current technological levels, the federal headquarters hadn't released any information about portable personal energy shields. Yan Huan quickly realized this might be a high-level energy shield technology not yet circulated in the Federation. If he could confiscate it and hand it over to the local scientific research institute for structural analysis and development, he would definitely achieve a massive merit. Thinking of this, a greedy glint flashed in Yan Huan's eyes. He said viciously, "Hand over everything on you, and I might consider reducing your sentence." Lin Shi looked disdainfully at the people in front of him. "Call your district chief here. Otherwise, you'll all bear the consequences." His voice was cold but full of authority. Hearing this, Yan Huan couldn't help but laugh. "You're just a Tier 5 Esper, and you demand to see our district chief? You've got some nerve," he mocked. But Lin Shi had lost his patience. Suddenly, a sharp glass shard appeared in his palm, its edge gleaming with a cold light. "If you won't call him, then we're leaving. Anyone who stops us dies." Yan Huan was about to say something else, but Lin Shi and Xia Chun had already taken a few steps forward. The surrounding guards were intimidated by Lin Shi's aura and involuntarily stepped back. "A bunch of useless trash. Your weapons are useless, so you're just not going to use them." The guards looked at each other, then mustered their courage and charged at Lin Shi. Swish, swish, swish. Just as they lunged forward, a series of piercing whistling sounds suddenly rang out. Immediately after, the guards who had charged forward all screamed in agony and collapsed. The others hurriedly crouched down to check and saw that the equipment on those guards was deeply dented. If they hadn't been wearing protective gear, they would likely be dead by now. Moreover, no one had clearly seen what weapon Lin Shi used. Seeing things going south, Yan Huan personally stepped in to block Lin Shi and Xia Chun's path. "Your shield might block energy attacks, but let's see if it can withstand a mental power attack." Seeing the captain personally take action, the other guards breathed a sigh of relief. But they quickly realized their relief was premature. A second later, Yan Huan cried out in pain, clutching his head and dropping to his knees. His face was as pale as paper, but his eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. He finally realized he had messed with a tough opponent. Despite the turmoil in his heart, relying on the power of the new 7th District Chief, Yan Huan remained unafraid. He stood up straight, his tone aggressive. "You ignorant fools, daring to oppose the entire new 7th District. Even if you escape today, do you know what the consequences will be? The airships in the district have all been withdrawn. Even if you run, you won't escape the pursuit of the new 7th District's military. When the time comes, you won't even know how you died." His voice was full of smugness and confidence, as if he could already see Lin Shi and Xia Chun being captured. But he had no idea that behind him, an invisible pressure was steadily approaching. Qin Tian had arrived at the police station gate at some point and was now walking briskly up behind Yan Huan. Judging by his hurried steps and tense expression, Qin Tian must have rushed over in a panic. Seeing Qin Tian, the guards hurriedly saluted. "Lord District Chief, Lord District Chief, why did you come here personally?" "Sir, these two violated district security regulations, openly resisted arrest, and attempted to assassinate guards. I suggest we execute them on the spot." Seeing Qin Tian, Yan Huan felt as if he had already witnessed Lin Shi and Xia Chun's tragic end. Because the combat squad captain of the new 7th District, Yi Yin, was also with Qin Tian. These two, aside from the mysterious master of the black market, were the strongest people in the new 7th District. Yan Huan couldn't understand why he couldn't capture these two who openly defied the new 7th District government. However, when Qin Tian saw Lin Shi surrounded by guards, he was startled. He immediately remembered the secretary of the new 9th district who had died at Lin Shi's hands in the black market. He immediately ordered, "Everyone, put your weapons down." The guards thought Qin Tian was telling Lin Shi to put his weapon down, so they didn't react in time. It wasn't until Yi Yin, the combat squad captain beside Qin Tian, roared, "You idiots! Put your weapons down now," that the guards finally snapped out of it and hastily lowered their weapons. Qin Tian walked briskly up to Lin Shi. "Are you all right? Are you hurt?" Lin Shi held up the glass shard in his hand in front of Qin Tian. "Do you think they could do anything to me?" Seeing the glass shard, Qin Tian's eye twitched violently. He turned and saw the guards lying on the ground. "Thank goodness they're not dead," Qin Tian said with a look of gratitude. "Thank you for showing mercy. My people don't know the rules. I will deal with them. I'll be taking my leave now. Please." Qin Tian made an inviting gesture. Yan Huan couldn't believe his eyes. If he still hadn't realized by now that these two were people he couldn't afford to mess with, then he had lived all these years in vain. But he was still unwilling to let it go and spoke up. "But District Chief, they have a device that can defend against laser weapons." Yan Huan was still obsessed with the energy shield that could block single-target laser weapons. Qin Tian looked at Lin Shi in horror. Clearly, he also understood the significance of a shield that could defend against single-target laser weapons. Lin Shi looked at Qin Tian, a flash of killing intent appearing and then vanishing. "Do you want it too?" No, not at all." Qin Tian broke out in a cold sweat and hurriedly denied it. Lin Shi and Xia Chun walked away casually. Seeing them leave, Yan Huan said in dissatisfaction, "Sir, why didn't you keep them here? They have a shield that can defend against single-target laser weapons." Qin Tian looked at his subordinate and slapped Yan Huan across the face. "Idiot! From today on, you are no longer the guard captain. Throw him in jail and let him think long and hard." "What? Sir, I didn't do anything wrong." Lin Shi returned to the villa. Qin Tian sent people over with a lot of things, saying it was to comfort and compensate Lin Shi. Lin Shi accepted it all, which also brought Qin Tian some relief. Not long after Xia Chun returned to his apartment, he received a notice from the general squad captain that he had been promoted to the new captain of Squad 3. As for the members of Squad 3, they were transferred from other squads to Xia Chun because the life signals of the old Squad 3 members had been lost, proving they had died in the recent beast tide. 3 days later, the retreating beast tide struck again. This time, the numbers were even greater than before. Qin Tian, with Tier 6 mental power, and Captain Yin, with Tier 7 mental power, led the squad members and the army, along with people from the black market, taking turns in battle to finally repel this beast tide. This time, Xia Chun participated in the battle as a squad member. Because of his outstanding performance, he was awarded a major merit. At the same time, Xia Chun also brought Lin Shi news from other districts. Currently, except for the new 4th district and the new 9th district, all other inner cities had been attacked by beast tides to varying degrees. Many speculated that a massive beast tide like the one 10,000 years ago was imminent. The plan to attack the federal headquarters had to be postponed indefinitely. The prices of raw materials in the district skyrocketed. Even the black market stopped selling raw materials. The demand for vessels surged, and the price of low-tier vessels was driven up to 30 million Federation credits each. Over the past few days, the frequency of spaceships coming and going had been very high. It was said that other districts, lacking supplies due to the beast tide attacks, were coming to the black market to purchase goods. There were also people who, fearing their own districts would be destroyed by the beast tide, sought refuge in districts with stronger forces. Because the new 7th district had a black market, many people with significant backgrounds had recently come to the inner city. Hotels and housing in the inner city were already scarce. Xia Chun brought a lot of information he had gathered within the squad. This information was much more detailed than what Qing Yi had gathered. No wonder Qing Yun had been clamoring to come to the new 7th district recently to join Lin Shi. First, it was because he was thinking about the raw materials in Lin Shi's hands. Before a great disaster struck, one's own strength was the most important protection. Second, it was because this place had a black market, and both its supplies and strength were higher than other ordinary inner cities. Of course, the new 1st district and the new 3rd district were exceptions. It was said that the new 1st District and the new 3rd District had been completely locked down. People inside were strictly forbidden from leaving, and outsiders were not allowed in. Only those with strength of Tier 5 or above were permitted to join the reserve squads. Soon, the city would increase its recruitment quota for squad members. Anyone with mental power of Tier 1 or above would have the opportunity to join the squad. Xiao Chun shook his head. Tier 1 mental power joining the combat squad? To be cannon fodder? Lin Shi immediately understood the purpose of this recruitment drive. Xiao Chun frowned. This desolate beast tide caused severe damage to the city walls. All these new squad members will be assigned to logistics, operating machinery to repair the walls. You know how dangerous it is outside. The desolate beast tide could return at any moment. So, these logistics members are just there to make up the numbers. Xiao Chun didn't say what came next. The prices of supplies in the city had skyrocketed recently. Civilians had to work themselves to the bone just to survive. Many people, despite their best efforts, struggled to meet their basic daily needs. Those who desperately joined the logistics squad to repair the city walls were all people who had run out of options. Whether facing the desolate beast attacks that could lead to the city's fall or getting swept up in the Federation's civil war, their fates were not their own to decide. It was truly a pity. Both Lin Shi and Xiao Chun understood clearly that the miserable lives of these people were entirely the result of the Sonlian continent's entire social system. They could help one person, but not the whole city. They could help for a moment, but not for a lifetime. Lin Shi felt nothing, but Xiao Chun felt very uncomfortable. Xiao Chun was silent for a moment, then continued. On the other hand, I guess those people will soon come to you for help. This time, you can set your terms. Unless they want to lose their lives, they will definitely agree. That way, things become simple again. It truly was a case of plans not keeping up with changes. If Qin Tian and the others came looking for him, they could discuss the high-energy bombs then. Currently, with desolate beasts attacking the city, these high-energy bombs had almost no lethal effect on them, far inferior to traditional physical explosive weapons. However, the damage of physical bombs was also limited. As long as Lin Shi brought it up, those people would definitely agree. Just after Xiao Chun left, Bao Lai arrived with the scar-faced man. This was the 3rd time Bao Lai had sought out Lin Shi alone. His goal was to obtain the high-tier vessels in Lin Shi's possession. It wasn't just Bao Lai, but Tu Ling as well. The man known as the Federation's #1 merchant also came to find Lin Shi for the 2nd time. Brother Lin, what do you think about the price we discussed last time? The price Bao Lai offered last time had increased from 10 billion to 20 billion Federation credits. But I'm sorry. Mr. Tu Ling came to me yesterday and raised the price to 3 billion, yet I still haven't agreed. Lin Shi leisurely took a sip of the Sonlian continent's special tea. Because it tasted a bit like milk tea from the blue planet, he found it richer than drinking alcohol. Bao Lai looked anxious. Brother Lin, you know I'm buying that container to fight against the wild beast tide, so that new District 7 can survive this wave. As for that guy Tu Ling, his goal is just to resell it at a higher price to other districts. So, I'll also offer 3 billion. I hope you'll sell that container to me, Brother Lin. 3 billion was a massive number. For any container, this was an astronomical sum, far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Even the wealthiest tycoons would struggle to accumulate that much in a lifetime. But to Lin Shi, it was just a small number. Lin Shi wasn't short on supplies. In his spatial storage, he still had 800 million Federation credits worth of supplies bought from the black market. If he wanted to, he could easily sell them for 2 billion Federation credits. However, Lin Shi wasn't short on money either. If he couldn't buy explosives to destroy the spatial tunnel, that massive amount of money meant nothing to him. After all, Lin Shi wasn't a materialistic person. He found it much more amusing to watch Bao Lai and Tu Ling, his 2 friends, scheme and fight over the container in his hands. Until he got something of true value. Using just money to snatch a mental power-enhancing container was madness. I'll think about it. The Federation credit has been depreciating lately. Having something real in hand is what matters. Lin Shi stood up, stretched his back, and moved his limbs after a long period without high-intensity combat. His joints popped, reminding him that he needed some exercise. The long period without fighting made him feel itchy for action. Rejected by Lin Shi again, Bao Lai could only smile bitterly. In the short term, they couldn't produce many valuable items for exchange. Wild beasts were besieging the city. Coupled with the fact that they had transported a lot of supplies to staging areas in other districts to prepare for war, the city's supply was tight. They could only rely on manual labor for production. Moreover, Linshur looked down on those ordinary supplies, and the black market didn't have the better stuff. Money couldn't be eaten. If it were anyone else, Bao Lai would have just robbed them. But against Linshur, robbing was impossible. In fact, it wasn't even certain who would be robbing whom. He could only wait patiently, hoping that one day Linshur would be moved by his sincerity and agree to the trade. Bao Lai consoled himself. Just then, Qingyi knocked on the door and reported, "Master, the landlord is here. He says he needs to see you." That's right, Linshur's villa was rented. He had rented it for 3 months, then extended it for another year. What was the landlord doing here now? Linshur ignored Bao Lai and waved his hand. "You sit here. I'll go down and take a look." In the hall, the landlord was holding a magnifying glass, carefully inspecting the villa, his eyes occasionally flashing with annoyance. Seeing Linshur come down, the landlord put away his magnifying glass and smiled. "You must be the tenant of my villa, right?" Linshur nodded. "You're the landlord. What's the matter?" Previously, Qingyi had signed the lease under Linshur's name, so this was the landlord's first time meeting Linshur. Seeing that Linshur was exceptionally young, the landlord's politeness dropped a few notches. He said, "Here's the thing. We signed a 1-year lease before, right? But unfortunately, someone has bought this villa, so I have to regretfully inform you that you need to move out." Linshur frowned. He signaled Qingyi to bring the contract. Linshur glanced over it. The contract clearly stated that if the landlord required the tenant to move out early, he had to give a 1-month notice and pay 3 times the penalty fee. At the time, Linshur rented this villa for 1 million Federation credits a year and had paid a deposit of 300,000. If he wanted to break the contract now, the landlord would have to compensate Linshur a total of 3.3 million Federation credits. He didn't care about this small amount of money. He just found moving a bit troublesome. But since the villa was sold, he couldn't really complain. Linshur handed the contract back to Qingyi and said to the landlord, "Give us a few days to find a new place, and then we'll move out. Transfer the penalty fee to my card." The landlord's eyes darted around. "The penalty fee is no problem, but I just took a look around, and you guys have damaged quite a few things while living here. So I need to assess the damages." Linshur gestured for him to go ahead. The landlord immediately pulled the magnifying glass out of his pocket and began assessing the damages. Bao Lai came downstairs and saw the landlord inspecting everywhere with a magnifying glass. He asked Linshur, "What's going on?" "He's the landlord. He wants us to move out and is assessing the damages first." Bao Lai's eyes flashed. He instantly understood what the landlord was trying to pull. As someone operating in the gray area, he understood this kind of landlord behavior all too well. He asked Linshur, "Brother Lin, the environment here is just okay. Let me find you a more suitable house." Linshur nodded. "It's not easy to find a house these days. It can't be occupied, and it can't charge water fees." Bao Lai sweated. Linshur accepted his goodwill. That way, it would be much easier for him to ask Linshur for small favors next time. Linshur sat in the hall waiting for the landlord to finish assessing the damages. Bao Lai didn't leave either, staying to chat with Linshur. By the time the landlord finished his assessment, over an hour had passed. Qingyi and Qing'er had followed the landlord the entire time. "You guys have caused too much damage to the house. Look at this scratch on the wall. Repainting it will cost at least 20,000 Federation credits. And here, this cabinet is scratched. This is top-quality wood. Replacing it will cost 300,000 Federation credits. And here, the landlord used his magnifying glass to find damages in the villa while recording them on his optical computer. When he finished assessing the entire villa and reported to Linshur, the total damages had reached 3.88 million. According to the landlord's assessment, not only did he not have to pay Linshur the penalty fee, but Linshur also owed him an extra 580,000. The landlord walked up to Linshur, sighed, and said, "Tell you what, if you move out today, for the sake of a pleasant cooperation, I'll swallow this 580,000 loss. What do you say?" "Bullshit. He said these damages were there before we even moved in." Qingyi said angrily to Linshur. "How could that be? Are you saying I'm wronging you? You claim the damages were already there. So do you have proof? If you have proof, I won't say another word and will refund your rent immediately, the landlord said aggressively. Proof? Who would think a landlord could be this shameless when moving in? How could they have thought to take pictures of every tiny scratch in the room beforehand? Seeing Ching Yi and Ching Er fall silent, the landlord grew even more smug. I'm not trying to make things difficult for you. As long as you move out today, I'll cover these damages. I'm being very reasonable here. If it were anyone else, they'd make you pay at least 580,000. Bao Lai, standing to the side, closely observed Lin Shi's expression. He tried to find a trace of anger on Lin Shi's face, but surprisingly, there was none. Why would Lin Shi get angry at this kind of person? So this was what the landlord was thinking. He wanted them to move out today so the new owner could take possession immediately. It seemed the new buyer had offered a high price and was rushing him, making the landlord anxious. You say we damaged your house, then let a third party appraise it. Until this matter is resolved, we won't be moving out, Lin Shi said leisurely. If the landlord had just paid the normal penalty fee, Lin Shi might have actually moved out. But this landlord clearly wanted to pin all the blame on him. This wasn't going to be that simple. The landlord secretly regretted being greedy for the penalty money. In truth, the buyer had already paid for the penalty fee, but the landlord wanted to pocket those few million, which was why he nitpicked to find damages. Thinking about handing the house over to the buyer, the landlord grew anxious. No, you have to move out today. Ching Yi pulled out the lease agreement, opened it, and said, the contract clearly states that if you want us to move out early before the lease expires, you must give at least a 1-month notice. Not to mention you're trying to scam us. Until this is cleared up, we absolutely will not move out. What are you going to do about it? The landlord's face turned ferocious. He reached out to snatch the contract from Ching Yi's hand, but Ching Yi dodged it. Ching Er immediately drew a dagger and stepped in front of Ching Yi, warning the landlord. Seeing the dagger, the landlord's eyes darted around, and he deliberately reached toward the blade. Ching Yi didn't expect the landlord to have a death wish. Before he could retract the blade, the dagger sliced the landlord's hand. He immediately started screaming bloody murder. Fine. You want to kill me just because you refuse to move out? I'm calling the cops. Just you wait. He then immediately ran out of the villa and used his optical computer to contact the guards. Ching Er was about to stop him, but Lin Shi signaled him not to. It was actually better if this landlord called the cops. Bao Lai took out his optical computer, used his clearance to look up the landlord's information, and said to Lin Shi, this guy's name is Liao Yong. He has level 5 clearance. He used to be in real estate and has some money. He's quite a veteran among the level 5 clearance holders in New District 7. Lin Shi couldn't care less. Why would he be afraid of a landlord? He asked Bao Lai, staying for dinner? Ching Er is cooking tonight. Surprisingly, besides killing people, his cooking skills are excellent. Bao Lai ate until his eyes sparkled. Lin Shi thought it was just okay. He found the food on the blue planet much tastier. Although the history of human development on the blue planet couldn't compare to the Sonlian continent, the people here had always been oppressed by the Federation headquarters, so they hadn't developed many culinary delicacies. Furthermore, ever since the wild beast tide appeared, animals rarely made it to the dining table, and human arable land had drastically decreased. Most ordinary people ate various flavored nutrient solutions developed by the Federation headquarters. Lin Shi couldn't help but recall the scenes of eating with everyone on the blue planet. What's wrong? Did that landlord ruin your mood? Bao Lai put down his bowl, looked up, and asked, need me to help take care of him? No need. It has nothing to do with him, Lin Shi replied calmly. He glanced toward the gate and saw the landlord approaching from a distance with a squad of guards. That's right, officer. You have to seek justice for me. I just wanted to evict them, but they tried to take over my house and kill me. The landlord cried and complained as he led the men to the villa. But the newly appointed captain of the guard squad found the route increasingly familiar. This new captain was one of the people who had previously come to arrest Lin Shi. He was formerly the vice captain. After Yao Huan was dismissed, the captain's position fell to him. Of course, he knew exactly why he was suddenly promoted. Because Yao Huan, the former captain, had offended someone he shouldn't have, a big shot that even the entire district had to respect. As a result, Yao Huan not only lost his job, but was also thrown in jail, with no telling when he'd get out. Fortunately, only Yao Huan had given the orders at the time, so the other guards weren't heavily implicated. The new captain even felt a bit grateful to the person Yao Huan had offended, Lin Shi. Otherwise, given Yao Huan's reputation, who knew when the captain's seat would have ever been his? This incident made the entire guard squad realize just how important Lin Shi was. Offending him was even more serious than offending the district chief. Besides maintaining security in the inner city, the guard squad also mingled with some of the wealthy and powerful figures in the city. This time, when the landlord came, the captain immediately responded. Someone daring to commit assault in the wealthy district right after he took office? He definitely had to arrest the culprit to set an example. But this road, why did it look more and more familiar? Wait a minute. The new captain rubbed his eyes and looked closely at his surroundings. Isn't this the road leading to the villa Lin Shi is staying at? Could it be? A strong sense of impending doom suddenly welled up in the new captain's heart. He grabbed the landlord. The landlord, being held back, hurriedly asked, "What's wrong?" "We need to arrest that guy." "What's his name?" "The tenant of yours, what is his name?" Despite the rush, he needed to know who he was helping to arrest. The landlord had to endure it. "Officer, his name is Lin Shi. He condoned his subordinate using a knife to assault me. Look at my hand, officer. I got injured struggling with them. Good thing I'm agile, or I would have lost my life." The landlord recounted everything, adding fuel to the fire. "Lin Shi," the new guard captain roared. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" The landlord stared wide-eyed, not understanding why the captain was reacting so violently. "You didn't ask." The new captain froze. A feeling of impending doom crashed down on him, like a bucket of ice water poured over his head, making his entire body tremble. Seeing the captain stop, the landlord glanced at the sky, stepped closer, and said in a slightly pleading tone, "Are you still going? Don't forget, I pay your guard station quite a bit of money every year. You should at least help out with this little matter, right?" The new captain regained his composure. He pulled out his weapon and pressed it against the landlord's temple, his eyes as vicious as if the landlord had murdered his entire family. I think I'll send you to hell today." The new captain's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he glared at the landlord. It was a look of irreconcilable hatred, not something that could be faked. The landlord screamed in terror and threw his hands up. "What are you doing? Don't do anything crazy." The new captain wanted to kill the landlord right then and there. He gritted his teeth, raised his laser gun, and kicked the landlord hard. "You son of a bitch. You dare try to get me killed? You deserve to die. You really deserve to die." This was followed by a flurry of kicks, making the landlord wail miserably. The landlord had no idea what was happening or why the captain had suddenly gone mad. The other guards also stared dumbfounded at their new captain. Weren't they here to arrest someone? Why was he beating up the victim? Wait, they just heard the name Lin Shi. Could it be? The guards looked at each other, all seeing the panic in each other's eyes. "Help! Your captain has gone crazy. Save me!" The landlord cried out helplessly. A few guards immediately stepped forward. The landlord thought he was being saved and hurriedly reached out to them. But a second later, "Go to hell, you old bastard. Who did you tell us to arrest? Lin Shi. Are you out of your fucking mind? Beat this old geezer to death. He almost got us all killed." Amidst the beating from the guards, the landlord quickly lost the strength to even scream. "Leave this old man alive and take him back to the station. I want him locked up with the rapists in prison," the new captain panted, stopping his assault. The other guards dragged the landlord, who was already beaten black and blue. Leaving the scene, they quickly got into their vehicles and sped away from the area. Before leaving, they continuously bowed and apologized in the direction of Lin Shi's villa, regardless of whether Lin Shi could hear them or not, before finally departing. Bao Lai, who was using his mental power to observe everything from inside the villa, looked at Lin Shi in surprise. Bao Lai knew about Lin Shi causing a ruckus at the police station not long ago. He just didn't expect that after that incident, the people at the station would be so terrified just hearing Lin Shi's name. Done eating, Bao Lai said his goodbyes and left. They thought everything was over, but the next day, someone else came knocking. "Listen closely. My master is the real owner of this house. If you know what's good for you, get out of my master's house right now." Two thugs shouted loudly in front of the villa gates. Initially, they planned to barge in, but one of them was beaten to a pulp by Qing Yi, so they switched from barging in to yelling outside. This is the house we rented, and the lease is right here. Even if you are the owners, you have to wait until the rent period is over or pay the breach of contract penalty before we move out. Qing Yi said firmly. Fine. You two just wait and see. Seeing that Qing Yi and Qing Er were tough and refused to yield, the two lackeys hurriedly ran away. The two quickly ran to a luxury car parked by the road. Master, the house is still occupied. That landlord didn't resolve the issue yesterday. The person inside the luxury car was a wealthy-looking old man in his 50s. I gave him a day, and he still hasn't gotten the house back. Have you contacted the landlord? We did, but we couldn't reach him. The subordinate answered respectfully. The old man narrowed his eyes in dissatisfaction, took out an unregistered card, and tossed it out the window. Contact the local guard station. Go make some connections and tell them to kick that person out for me. Merchants like them were best at making connections with guard stations. Wherever they went, maintaining a good relationship with the guard station was essential. As long as they greased the right palms, the guard station would become a sharp knife for them. The old man narrowed his eyes. Yes, master. The two hurriedly picked up the card. After the old man's car drove off, they drove to the guard station, just like always. Hearing that the two came to make connections, the guard station captain immediately treated them with great hospitality. The master said he bought this house, but the people inside refused to leave, so he'd like to ask for your help. The subordinate handed the master's card to them. The captain took the card, glanced at the balance, and accepted it with a beaming smile. Easy, easy. Give us the address, and we'll head over right away. The subordinate then gave the address of Lin Shi's villa. The smile on the captain's face vanished. Say that again. Where is this location? The two subordinates still hadn't realized the severity of the situation and repeated it once more. Men. The captain suddenly shouted toward the door. Restrain these two. Throw them in with that dog from yesterday. The two were dragged away, still not understanding what was happening. What are you doing? Our master is a big shot from New District 6. Restrain them. Meanwhile, in Lin Shi's villa, Mr. Tu Ling came to visit again. Lin Shi had been quite free lately, so having someone come over to chat was a nice distraction. Mr. Tu Ling brought gifts every time he came, so Lin Shi didn't dislike him. Mr. Lin, these are local specialties from my hometown. Just a small token of appreciation, please accept them. Qing Yi, standing nearby, tactfully accepted them. Lin Shi glanced over. You're too polite. What brings you here? Tu Ling smiled and said, I'd like to renegotiate the price of that high-end item with you. Lin Shi nodded. Go ahead. How much are you planning to offer this time? As the two were talking, Qing Er approached Lin Shi and whispered, Master, there's an old man at the gate claiming to be a big shot from New District 6. Tu Ling's eyes flickered. He seemed to recognize this person. This guy's name was Shui Hao. Back in the day, he had given these people a few pointers. Thanks to a bit of luck and his guidance, they managed to build their careers. They even went around boasting to outsiders that they were his disciples. I'm not seeing him. Lin Shi waved his hand dismissively. Qing Yi returned to the villa's gate. Our master says he won't see you. Please leave. Still sitting in his luxury car, Shui Hao held an exquisite walking stick, looking completely at ease. He said, The villa you're currently staying in is now under my name. I'll cover the breach of contract fee. Pack up and move out immediately. Qing Yi finally understood. So that's how it is. You were the one who sent the landlord here, weren't you? Shui Hao remained silent, tacitly admitting it. Seeing Shui Hao's arrogant, self-important expression, Qing Yi felt deeply annoyed. The number one wealthy merchant of District 6? Even the Federation's top merchant had to bow respectfully before his master. But not wanting to cause trouble for his master, he simply said coldly, Our master has no intention of moving out right now. Do as you please. With that, he turned and walked away. Shui Hao sat in the car, his eyes flashing with anger. He rolled up the window, using his spiritual power to block anyone from prying. The butler sitting in the front frowned and said, Master, they refuse to move. Should we find someone to kick them out? These tenants aren't simple. The security team knew who I was, yet they still dared to touch my people. Clearly, his status in this district is higher than mine. Shui Hao's eyes glinted. Master, what are you planning? If we can't touch him, we'll find someone who can. I heard that Bai Ju, the son of District 6 chief, has been in District 7 for quite a while. That brat is incredibly arrogant. Find a chance for the two of them to cross paths. It'd be best if they get into a fight. Master, you truly have a way. But I heard that ever since Bai Ju arrived in District 7, he's become much more well-behaved and rarely goes out. That's right. According to our intel, Mr. Tu Ling is also in District 7. How about we host a banquet and invite him over? It'd be a good chance to improve your relationship with him. Shuehao tapped his walking stick lightly, pondering for a moment before saying, good idea. But with the desolate beasts attacking the city right now, hosting a banquet might seem ignorant and could easily offend the district management. In that case, go meet the district chief in my name. Tell him I want to invest in the district's development and host a pre-battle mobilization rally at the Starlight Hotel. If the chief agrees, we can send out invitations under his name. When the time comes, even if they don't want to attend, they'll have to. As expected of you, Master. You've thought of everything. I'll get on it right away. The luxury car drove off. Qing Yi returned to the villa and said nothing. Only after Mr. Tu Ling left did Qing Yi recount what had happened at the gate. Ignore those troublemakers. I'm heading out for a bit. Ever since the desolate beasts attacked the city, flights had become incredibly busy. What used to be one flight every few days was now one flight a day. This made the city's demographics highly complex and chaotic. All sorts of people were flooding into the inner city, inevitably bringing along troublemakers. For an expert of Lin Shi's caliber, whether or not he bothered to deal with these minor annoyances depended entirely on his mood and whim at the time. After all, with his strength, handling these issues was a piece of cake. But there was no need for him to intervene. Everything depended on his own thoughts and decisions. Because the city was on lockdown due to the desolate beast attack, the military forces inside couldn't just go out and hunt the beasts as they pleased. Using the heavy rain as cover, Lin Shi sneaked to the base of the wall and scaled it. The wall's alarm system was completely useless against his agility and powerful spiritual energy. Stepping into the wilderness, Lin Shi felt like a fish in water. He pulled a massive axe from his spatial storage and began a joyous slaughter. By the time he returned to the city, it was already the following evening. Seeing him back, Qing Er immediately stepped forward and said, Master, Lady Qing Yun has arrived in New District 7. She's here? I thought she couldn't leave New District 9? Lin Shi, having just showered, was changing clothes and buttoning his shirt. Qing Yi spoke up. I heard New District 9 suffered a massive desolate beast attack last night. Their city walls are nearly half destroyed. Lady Qing Yun managed to escape thanks to her good relationship with Starlight. Even the chief of New District 9 fled and seems to have arrived in our district as well. New District 9 must be a living hell right now. How pitiful. Although Qing Yi wasn't an ordinary person, his status was even lower than one. So he deeply understood the feeling of having no control over one's fate. Even the district chief had run away. That meant the entire district, hundreds of millions of people, had been abandoned. Even though humanity could reproduce, the dead couldn't be brought back to life. Those people had tried so hard to survive, but facing a desolate beast horde without the protection of the guards and the military, they could only wait for death and despair. Just thinking about that tragic scene made Qing Yi's heart run cold. If their city was breached, would they be abandoned too? The answer was undoubtedly yes. When that time came, there definitely wouldn't be any seats on the airships for lowly people like them. Lin Shi patted Qing Yi's shoulder, snapping him out of his thoughts. Where is Qing Yun? Qing Yi hurriedly replied. Master, Lady Qing Yun is currently at the Starlight Hotel in this district. Yesterday, she successfully took over the Starlight Hotel here and became its head manager. Lin Shi nodded slightly, indicating he understood. At that moment, Qing Yi pulled out 2 exquisite invitation cards and handed them to Lin Shi. These are invitations from the district chief. He specifically invited you to attend the pre-battle mobilization rally tomorrow at noon. The venue is the banquet hall on the 22nd floor of the Starlight Hotel. Lin Shi took the invitations and examined them. One had flamboyant, elegant handwriting, clearly handwritten by someone. It was signed by Qin Tian. The other one looked more formal. Although it was also issued by Qin Tian, the handwriting was different. Lin Shi smirked and said with a faint smile, Someone really wants me to attend this mobilization rally. Qin Tian knew his strength, so he definitely wanted to invite him to the rally sincerely, probably to discuss cooperation. As for the other invitation, Lin Shi let out a ruthless smile. Whatever that person's intentions were, fine. He'd just treat it as a bit of fun. The next at noon, Lin Shi changed into a different outfit and headed to the Starlight Hotel. Starlight Hotel. The entrance was still manned by beautiful, neat, and polite receptionists. However, today, the number of people going in and out of the hotel was significantly higher. Many were dressed in luxurious formal wear. Prominent figures of society constantly came and went. Some walked alone with their bodyguards, while others arrived in groups, accompanied by their wives and children. Yet, even though these people would be treated like royalty elsewhere, today they were held up on the first floor. Because only those with invitations were allowed into the banquet on the 22nd floor. These people didn't even have a ticket to get in. It had probably been a long time since New District 7 hosted such a grand and lavish party. Even the uninvited dressed to the nines and showed up, hoping to rub shoulders with the top brass of New District 7 and boost their own profiles. As a result, the first-floor lobby of the Starlight Hotel was packed with people who didn't have invitations. They couldn't go up to the 22nd floor, but they still wanted to hang around and network with the higher-ups. Lin Shi arrived today with Qing Yi, both dressed very casually. Lin Shi wasn't used to wearing stiff formal suits. They restricted his movements. As for Qing Yi, being Lin Shi's attendant, he couldn't possibly dress better than his master. Stepping into the hotel lobby, a staff member warmly greeted them. "How can I help you too?" Coming to the Starlight Hotel today didn't necessarily mean going up to the 22nd floor. They could just be here for a regular stay. After all, aside from Starlight, all the other hotels were fully booked with people from the areas surrounding New District 7. Therefore, the people lingering in the grand lobby took one look at Lin Shi's unfamiliar, youthful face and his casual attire, and immediately looked away, not sparing him even a second glance. Lin Shi handed the two invitations to the hotel staff. To the 22nd floor. The staff member looked at the two invitations in surprise. After confirming they bore the hotel's special seal, they attached two thin chips to their hands. "These are your access passes for the 22nd floor. Please keep them safe. Please take the elevator over here. This banquet uses a private entrance, and the elevator goes straight to the 22nd floor." Seeing that Lin Shi and Qing Yi were also guests of the pre-battle mobilization rally, some of the people staking out the lobby secretly regretted not recognizing their esteemed status, missing a chance to network with big shots. Lin Shi and Qing Yi stepped into the elevator together. The elevator reached the 22nd floor, and the doors opened. Before their eyes was a magnificent banquet hall. At this moment, Qin Tian hadn't arrived yet, so the rally hadn't officially begun. Inside the hall, many people were gathered in groups, chatting animatedly. Most of the people here didn't recognize Lin Shi and Qing Yi, so naturally, no one approached them. "Master, let's go sit over there for a bit." Knowing Lin Shi preferred quiet, Qing Yi found a secluded spot for him to rest. Lin Shi observed the attendees of the rally. From a distance, he spotted Duan Lang, the chief of New District 9. Just as Qing Yi had said, New District 9 had fallen, and Duan Lang had been forced to flee to New District 7. Duan Lang's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. He probably still hadn't recovered from the shock of the inner city's fall. He really looked like a stray dog in mourning, trying hard to pull himself together. Qing Yin was also there. Today, she wore a stunning bluish-purple evening gown, looking as beautiful as a gorgeous butterfly fluttering through the crowd. While Lin Shi was observing everyone, Xuehao's sharp-eyed butler spotted Qing Yi sitting with Lin Shi in a corner. He immediately approached and whispered a few words into Xuehao's ear. Xuehao glanced at Lin Shi for a second, furrowed his brows, then relaxed them, instantly breaking into a confident smile. Then, Xuehao walked over to Baiju, who was sitting alone, looking bored in a corner. Baiju had been bored out of his mind these past few days. Ever since he went to the black market to attend the conference urging level 9 spiritual power experts to join the alliance, he had been scared witless by some freak who could flip a car barehanded. He had planned to hang around New District 7 for a few days, only to get caught up in the desolate beast disaster. He was so terrified he wanted to run back to New District 6. However, the beast disaster in New District 6 was even worse, and his father had ordered him to stay put in New District 7. So, Baiju had no choice but to kill time at the Starlight Hotel for a few days, but he didn't know anyone here. No matter how fun the toys were, it was boring without anyone to play with. Just as he was about to ditch and head back to New District 6, his father texted him, telling him to attend today's pre-battle mobilization rally. His father wanted him to act as a representative to cooperate with that level 9 spiritual power expert from last time. Baiju had no choice but to accept the invitation and attend the banquet. But upon arriving, he realized the place was full of old geezers. There was no one his age. Baiju felt like a wilted radish, completely devoid of energy. Just then, he felt a shadow loom over him. Baiju looked up and saw Xuehao approaching. He lowered his head again and gloomily sipped his wine. Young Master Bai, sitting all alone looks quite boring, doesn't it? What nonsense are you spouting? Baiju looked at Xuehao impatiently. Xuehao was a tycoon from New District 6 who often sucked up to his father, so Baiju knew him. Don't be angry, young Master Bai. Let me introduce you to some friends. Knowing Baiju's temper, Xuehao pointed toward Lin Shi. Over there are 2 people around your age. I heard they're young prodigies of New District 7. They know you're here and want to get acquainted. What? Some so-called young prodigies think they're worthy of meeting me. Baiju snapped, looking in the direction Xuehao pointed. He only saw Lin Shi's back, but just that silhouette alone reminded Baiju of his brand new car that had been wrecked in less than a day. Baiju jolted and shot to his feet. Thinking his plan had succeeded, Xuehao chuckled and said, among peers, status doesn't matter. Since you're bored, young Master Bai, making some new friends wouldn't hurt. Xuehao understood Baiju very well. This guy, the son of New District 6 chief, was already a level 6 spiritual power user at such a young age. With outstanding talent and a prominent background, he had never taken anyone seriously in the Eastern District. As for Lin Shi, the owner of the villa he bought, he was only a level 5 spiritual power user. Yet somehow, he seemed to have ties with both the black market and the guard squad. However, Xuehao figured that as long as he didn't get his own hands dirty, even if Lin Shi had a massive backing, he wouldn't lose anything. Seeing Baiju marching toward the target, Xuehao let out a sinister sneer. He decided to go over and add some fuel to the fire. But just as he got close, he heard Baiju greeting him with blatant flattery. Boss, good afternoon. Lin Shi glanced at Baiju. We've met before. At the entrance of the black market. My subordinate carelessly blocked your car back then, and I didn't get a chance to apologize. I apologize now. Baiju downed his glass of wine, grinning from ear to ear. Boss, I'm Baiju. May I know your name? Lin Shi. Not sensing any malice from Baiju, Lin Shi replied mildly. Baiju enthusiastically raised a full glass of wine. Boss Lin Shi, you truly are a young prodigy. I toast to you. Lin Shi politely raised his glass and drained it. Baiju grew even more excited, sitting down opposite Lin Shi and striking up a conversation, his words laced with flattery and sheer worship. Standing nearby, Xuehao's eyes widened in disbelief. How could young Master Bai, the tyrant of New District 6, suddenly change his tune here? Moreover, how did Baiju even know Lin Shi? Noticing Qing Yi's gaze locked onto him, Xuehao didn't dare eavesdrop any longer and quietly backed away, though he kept Baiju and Lin Shi in his peripheral vision. Master, how did it go? Was it a success? The butler approached, equally shocked to see Baiju and Lin Shi chatting happily. Think of another way. Xuehao hadn't expected Baiju to know Lin Shi. This complicated things. He took a sip of wine, scanning the crowd until his eyes finally landed on Qing Yun, who was busy socializing. He had heard that the manager of the Starlight Hotel in New District 9 had quite the background. Furthermore, the forces behind the Starlight Hotel were deep and unfathomable. If he could get someone to clash with the hotel manager, Xuehao narrowed his eyes and gave his butler a few instructions. The butler immediately went to a corner and called over a waiter. Meanwhile, Qing Yun was politely raising her glass to every guest, but she always kept her body at a safe distance. Many old men tried to use the opportunity to get close to her, but Qing Yun tactfully dodged them all. Her eyes swept across the hall, finally stopping on Lin Shi in the corner. Her initially polite and distant eyes suddenly lit up, and a genuine smile bloomed on her lips. This made the old man in front of her narrow his eyes. Just as he was about to continue talking to her, a strong force slammed into him. The old man stumbled, the wine in his glass spilling out. Qing Yun quickly dodged, frowning at the careless waiter who had bumped into him. What's going on? The waiter looked panicked. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was too careless. Please forgive me, manager. I apologize, sir. It's fine. It was my fault for not managing my staff properly. I'm sorry for the trouble. Qing Yun apologized to the man who was bumped. It's nothing. It's fine. No harm done. The man was initially furious, but hearing Qing Yun's apology, he had to pretend to be magnanimous, even asking if her gown had been stained. After exchanging a few pleasantries with him, Qing Yun looked at the waiter who caused the mess and said, "You, come with me." The waiter lowered his head and followed Qing Yun to the adjacent side hall. What happened back there? Is this your first day working at Starlight? Once they arrived, Qing Yun's expression turned icy, exuding an imposing aura. I'm truly sorry, manager. Enough. Go back to work. The waiter bowed his head and left. Qing Yun was about to leave the side hall when a figure suddenly rushed in from the door. She nimbly dodged, but still got bumped on the shoulder. She was about to yell when she saw that the person who fell to the ground was actually her former subordinate. Qing Yi, why is it you? Ignoring his injuries, Qing Yi hurriedly stood up and apologized. My lady, someone called me over just now and then shoved me. Only then did Qing Yun notice another waiter leaving through the door. She instantly understood everything, her beautiful eyes blazing with anger. Very well. It seems some old fox came to the banquet today and even wants to scheme against me. I'm so sorry, Lady Qing Yun. Qing Yun furrowed her brows and waved her hand. Go back. Pretend nothing happened. Someone is trying to set me up. Did they want her to get angry and punish Qing Yi? Qing Yi was just a subordinate. Who could he possibly have offended? Qing Yun watched Qing Yi leave, then stepped out of the side hall. Seeing Lin Shi chatting happily with Bai Ju, a thought struck her. She scanned the hall, but still couldn't pinpoint the culprit. It seemed someone wanted to use her to spark a conflict with someone else. Which old fox could it be? At that moment, Qing Yi returned to Lin Shi's side and whispered everything that had just happened. Qing Yun didn't know who was scheming against her, but Lin Shi's gaze immediately locked onto 3 people in the hall. In the entire banquet, only 3 people had shown malice toward him: Duan Lang, an old man, and the servant or butler standing next to that old man. Observing the actions of the 3, the ones pulling the strings were definitely the old man and his servant. Bai Ju, do you know Xue Hao? Lin Shi looked at Bai Ju, who was chatting away, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Bai Ju tilted his head, looking slightly surprised. Xue Hao? That old geezer? He's a major merchant in District 6. Don't tell me you know him too, boss Lin Shi. Lin Shi suddenly understood. Right? If he wasn't mistaken, that was the very owner who bought his villa. No wonder. Lin Shi thought to himself, the corners of his mouth curling into a meaningful smile. He didn't show much emotion, simply saying calmly to Bai Ju, I don't know him, but I feel like he's hostile toward me. What? He dares to be hostile toward our boss Lin Shi. Hearing this, Bai Ju instantly flew into a rage. He shot up and aggressively marched toward Xue Hao. He stopped right in front of Xue Hao and, without a word, threw his full glass of red wine straight into Xue Hao's face. What are you doing? Xue Hao cried out in shock. The butler beside him yelled furiously. Young Master Bai, what are you doing? Why are you treating us like this? Xue Hao, you know exactly why I did that. If you keep acting like a fool, don't blame me for not holding back. There are some people you just can't touch. You'd better know your place and stop asking for trouble. Bai Ju's voice wasn't loud, but everyone had fallen silent the moment he threw the wine. His words echoed in everyone's ears. Hearing this, all eyes turned toward them, everyone bewildered, wondering what could have happened to make Bai Ju act like this in public. Bai Ju was no fool. As the son of new District 6 chief and the eldest young master of the Bai family, he had been taught since childhood to weigh the pros and cons. How could an ordinary merchant flip a car barehanded? And to openly support Lin Shi of the black market at such a crucial moment? Wine dripped down Xue Hao's face, making him look incredibly pathetic. His face was pale as he glared furiously at Bai Ju. Bai Ju, I call you young master Bai out of respect for your father. Do you not know what occasion this is? daring to treat me like this? Shuehao was livid. He hadn't expected Bai Ju to snap at a time like this, catching him completely off guard. Moreover, with so many people watching, it made him even more humiliated. But he didn't dare make a move against Bai Ju. After all, the other party's status was nothing to scoff at. Bai Ju, however, had zero reservations. You know exactly what you did. I'm warning you, don't mess with people you shouldn't mess with. With that, Bai Ju turned and walked back to Lin Shi. Seeing this, Qing Yun looked thoughtful. Shuehao was so angry his lungs were about to explode, but he didn't dare throw a fit in front of everyone. Furthermore, Bai Ju's words made him a bit anxious. This scene drew everyone's attention to Lin Shi, who was sitting in the corner. Everyone stared, but no one recognized him. Just then, the elevator doors opened again. Mr. Tu Ling stepped into the hall with an attendant. Tu Ling swept his gaze across the room, quickly locking eyes with Lin Shi, then smiled and walked toward him. Those who were about to go suck up to Shuehao immediately stopped in their tracks. At this moment, people started whispering about Lin Shi. Who is that young man? Does anyone know him? No idea. Do you guys know him? Most of the people here were merchants from other districts or spiritual power users of level 5 and above. None of them recognized Lin Shi. Those who did know Lin Shi, like the captain of the new District 7 combat team and the captain of the guard squad, unanimously kept their mouths shut when asked if they knew him. This only made everyone even more curious about Lin Shi's identity. Soon, the elevator opened again. Bao Lai, wearing a cold expression, stepped out of the elevator. Few people had ever seen the face of this legendary master of the black market, so his arrival didn't cause much of a stir. Bao Lai's eyes immediately spotted Lin Shi in the corner, and he headed straight for him. Right after Bao Lai got off the elevator, Qin Tian, the chief of New District 7, entered the hall with two trusted subordinates. Seeing Qin Tian, everyone swarmed the elevator doors. Chief Qin. It's Chief Qin. He's here. Chief Qin, I hope everything has been well since we last met. Only a few people remained seated, unmoving. Qing Yun, Tu Ling, Bai Ju, and Lin Shi didn't budge an inch. Even Duan Lang went over. Chief Qin, I'm Duan Lang. We've met many times before. Duan Lang spoke with blatant flattery. He had lost his status as the #1 district chief and was now just an ordinary spiritual power user. At best, a spiritual power user with a bit of influence. Qin Tian only responded to Duan Lang with a polite smile, then began searching for someone in the crowd. When he saw Lin Shi in the hall, his face lit up, and he walked over to the banquet table. The others also returned to their seats one by one. Everyone, I am Qin Tian, Chief of New District 7. I am thrilled that you all could attend this pre-battle mobilization rally. Those of you present here must have faith in New District 7, believing that we can overcome this beast horde. Given the special circumstances, I'll keep it brief. I believe you all want the city to safely survive this desolate beast attack. The purpose of this rally is to ask that those with money contribute money, and those with strength contribute strength. Make no mistake, New District 7 will absolutely not harbor any freeloaders. Now is the time for you to show your goodwill. Starting from the left, please state your contributions. Qin Tian pointed to the left. A plump middle-aged man on the left stood up and said loudly, I am a merchant from the women's district who came to seek refuge. My name is Sui Yuan. This time, I am willing to donate 50 million Federation credits to the mobilization rally. Thank you for your contribution to New District 7. Next, a young man next to the plump middle-aged man stood up. I am a level 5 spiritual power user. I am willing to join the New District 7 army and fight the enemy alongside you all. Excellent. Now that's the spirit. On behalf of the people of New District 7, I thank you. Next, I am. People stood up one after another. Just as Qin Tian had said, these people either contributed money or strength. Those who initially came here to profit now had to empty their pockets. Under the atmosphere of the hall, everyone had to donate at least 10 million Federation credits. Before long, it was Shuehao's turn. Shuehao stood up, looked around, and spoke. I am Shuehao. I personally donate 200 million Federation credits to supply elite equipment for the frontline soldiers. The entire hall buzzed with excitement. Although many people here had 200 million, not many were willing to donate such a massive sum to New District 7. The donations that followed didn't surpass Xuehao's amount. Xuehao felt the admiring gazes of the crowd, his pride immensely satisfied. That was until it was Lin Shi's table's turn. Baiju stood up and spoke briefly but impactfully. I'll donate 300 million. The crowd erupted again. The son of New District 6 chief truly had extraordinary bearing. But this was just the beginning. As soon as Baiju finished speaking, Tu Ling, sitting next to Lin Shi, stood up and said, "Good evening, everyone. Representing the Tu Ling Merchant Guild, I donate 10 billion. 10 billion. That's Mr. Tu Ling. Mr. Tu Ling is so rich, just casually dropping 10 billion. Who are the people sitting with Mr. Tu Ling?" Someone wondered. Most people didn't recognize Lin Shi and Bao Lai. Bao Lai stood up and said with a smile, "Representing the black market, I also donate 10 billion. Another 10 billion. The entire hall was in an uproar once again. Wow. So they're from the black market. Then that guy is he the master of the black market? As expected of the black market. So generous, dropping 10 billion just like that. It was Lin Shi's turn, but he remained seated, unmoving. Everyone here was donating money and resources just to give Qin Tian face, and more importantly, to seek protection in New District 7. That was why they were scrambling to show their goodwill. Otherwise, they might very well be kicked out of New District 7 by Qin Tian. But Lin Shi didn't need to seek refuge in New District 7. He was here to cooperate with Qin Tian. Not only did he not need to offer any money or goods, but Qin Tian and the others had to show their goodwill before he would even lift a finger. Qin Tian naturally understood this, so he directly spoke up to end the donation drive. All right, thank you all for your generous contributions. On behalf of New District 7. But before Qin Tian could finish his sentence, an untimely voice rang out in the banquet hall. Hold on, Chief. That guy over there doesn't seem to have donated yet. Xuehao's butler suddenly spoke up. This sentence voiced the question on the minds of most people present. They looked toward the corner of the room, where Lin Shi sat next to Bao Lai and Baiju. All they saw was a young man sitting there, relaxed and completely unfazed. Qin Tian's face darkened. Insolent. Whose subordinate are you? Xuehao hurriedly stepped forward, laughing to smooth things over. It's my butler's fault for being ignorant, Chief. Perhaps he was just afraid you missed someone. Seeing that it was Xuehao, the one who funded this donation rally, Qin Tian's expression softened a bit, but his tone was still sharp. No one was missed. Everyone has been very enthusiastic about this donation drive. I acknowledge every contribution to New District 7. Now, the banquet officially begins. Please, enjoy your meal. With that, Qin Tian stepped down from the podium and hurried toward Lin Shi. At this point, no one was in the mood to eat anymore. All their attention was fixed on Lin Shi's table. Surrounding Lin Shi was a group of people. Qin Tian, chief of New District 7, the son of New District 6 chief, Tu Ling, the Federation's top merchant, and the infamous master of the black market. These were all massive figures. Yet, at this very moment, they were all gathered around an unfamiliar young man. Everyone grew even more curious about Lin Shi's true identity. Many began to wonder if there was some other big shot in the Federation they hadn't crossed paths with yet. What shocked them even more was that even these towering figures were respectful, perhaps even a bit sycophantic, in front of this young man. Many stared with their jaws dropped. Some even couldn't resist running over to ask Xuehao about Lin Shi. Xuehao finally snapped out of his daze. Initially, he thought Lin Shi was just someone with an average background, maybe relying on the guard squad. But looking at this situation, he realized Lin Shi's background and connections were vastly greater than he had ever imagined. Thinking of this, Xuehao secretly felt lucky that he hadn't directly offended Lin Shi. Mr. Xue, isn't it? Qing Yun had appeared beside Xuehao at some point, flashing a captivating smile. That's me. And you are? Xuehao asked, even though he knew perfectly well. He had been planning to leave the hotel when he ran into the former manager. I'm the hotel manager. Just call me Qing Yun. Qing Yun lightly brushed a stray lock of hair and said, I have something to discuss with you. Would you mind stepping into the room next door? Of course. Xuehao didn't hesitate. Anyone who could be the manager of the Starlight Hotel was definitely not ordinary. Moreover, the mysterious background of Starlight was something every merchant knew all too well. Xuehao followed Qing Yun into the adjacent room. Qing Yun walked in behind him and shut the door tightly. The hotel's soundproofing was excellent. Once the door was closed, no sound from the outside could get in. Seeing Qing Yun close the door, Shuehao suddenly felt a twinge of regret. But a second later, he was slammed to the ground by Qing Yun and kicked hard. "What are you doing?" Shuehao's face turned purple as he clutched his aching stomach, completely baffled as to why Qing Yun was beating him. Qing Yun tucked her hair behind her ear and straightened her slightly wrinkled gown. "What am I doing?" "You know exactly what. You old geezer, trying to pull your dirty schemes on me? If I don't break a few of your bones today, you won't even know who you've messed with." Qing Yun clapped her hands. A person stepped out from the corner of the room. It was the former hotel manager. "Little Ding, beat him up. It doesn't matter if you beat him to death." "Yes, Sister Yun." Back in the banquet hall, Lin Shi smiled as he listened to Qin Tian asking for his help. Bao Lai also chimed in. "Brother Lin, you're in New District 7 now. We share the same glory and disgrace. Without the airships, we're all grasshoppers tied to the same string, right? I can help, but I don't work for free. If I want to leave, even without an airship, New District 7 can't keep me here." Qin Tian nodded vigorously, but inwardly, he scoffed at Lin Shi's claim of being able to leave without an airship. Did he think he could just sprout wings and fly out without an airship? "What do you want, Brother Lin?" Lin Shi pretended to think for a moment, then said, "Since you guys haven't started fighting yet, give me that high-explosive energy shell from last time." Bao Lai smiled bitterly. "Brother Lin, that high-explosive energy shell was snatched by New District 8. It's not ours. Aren't you guys allies?" Lin Shi emphasized, "I don't lack money, nor do I lack supplies or weapons. If you can't even meet this small condition, then I don't think you have any sincerity in cooperating. All right, those are my terms. If you can't do it, then forget it. I have things to do." Without another word, Lin Shi stood up and left. He was confident these people would agree. After Lin Shi left, Qin Tian, Bao Lai, and Mr. Tu Ling looked at each other. "Agree to his terms. Wait, if we can't hold on later, then we'll agree." The three of them reached a consensus. Just then, the communicator on Qin Tian buzzed violently. At the same time, an ear-piercing alarm echoed throughout New District 7. The deafening alarm blared, signaling that the desolate beast horde had returned. Qin Tian immediately left the banquet, ordering all combat personnel to head to the city walls and prepare for battle. At the same time, he rallied those who had just signed up to fight. Although everyone was tense, they managed to stay calm. After all, until the city walls were breached, everyone inside was temporarily safe. Lin Shi and Qing Yi had just stepped out of the hotel when Qin Tian sped past them. He gave Lin Shi a hasty greeting before rushing into his car and speeding off in a cloud of dust. Hearing the city's alarms, Lin Shi texted Xia Chun, telling him to be careful. Lin Shi only wanted to remind Xia Chun to stay safe in battle, but to his surprise, Xia Chun had arrived at the villa before he even got back. He had even brought a girl with him. Seeing Lin Shi return, Xia Chun quickly approached and said briefly, "You're back. I have to head to the wall immediately. This is Lulu, my friend. She'll be staying here for a few days. Once the beast horde retreats, I'll come pick her up." Lin Shi nodded, indicating he understood. Xia Chun looked at Lin Shi with deep gratitude before hurrying off. Lulu was trembling slightly, clearly terrified. She kept her head down, not daring to look at him, and said in a small voice, "Hello, I'm Lulu. I'm sorry for the intrusion." She peeked up slightly, glancing at the man in front of her. His face was impassive, and there was a coldness between his brows that made him seem unapproachable. Lulu couldn't help but feel a bit anxious. "Qing Yi, go buy some personal items and daily necessities for the girl." "Qing Er, prepare a room," Lin Shi ordered. "Yes, master." The two replied in unison, then turned to carry out their tasks. Only then did Lin Shi look at Lulu, offering a faint smile. "Lulu, right? I'm Lin Shi. Make yourself at home. Go on, treat this place like your own home from now on." Lulu nodded repeatedly. Although this man looked cold, he gave off a very reliable vibe. After Qing Er finished preparing the room, Qing Yi also returned from shopping. "Master, the supermarkets have been completely cleared out. I only managed to buy a few things." Qing Yi looked apologetic. Lin Shi nodded and pulled some daily necessities from his spatial storage to make up for what was missing. Lulu hurriedly waved her hands. You don't have to go through all this trouble. This is enough. She blamed herself for not bringing her own things and having to bother others. But the desolate beasts had appeared too suddenly, and Xia Chun had to rush to the front line, leaving Lulu with no time to pack. Not to mention, her house had been robbed earlier. Coupled with the fact that this beast horde was far more ferocious than the last, Xia Chun didn't want to bother Lin Shi, which was why he brought Lulu here. It's just some trivial stuff. Lulu looked around the villa, knowing Lin Shi wasn't short on money, but her eyes were still brimming with gratitude. I'm so sorry for bothering you. I'll clean the house for the next few days. I know how to cook, too. Lin Shi waved his hand. They'll handle that. You're Xia Chun's friend, which makes you my guest. Just relax and stay here comfortably. Qing Er, show Lulu to her room. Lulu followed Qing Er. Lin Shi watched the girl's back and chuckled softly. I didn't expect Xia Chun to actually care for someone else. Has he not cared about you before? Qing Zhu, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly popped out. Lin Shi thought for a moment, gently stroking his chin. How should I put it? On Blue Star, Xia Chun was always protecting others, but back then, it felt like he was just completing a mission, whether it was his teammates or Xiao Guohuang. Do you get what I mean? Honestly, Lin Shi didn't quite understand it himself, as he had always been emotionally detached. I get what you mean. Before coming to this world, I felt like he carried a death wish. But since arriving here, he seems to have changed. Exactly. That's it. Could the person who changed him be that girl with the scarred face? Lin Shi wondered, looking in the direction Lulu had left. This beast horde will probably require you to step in, Qing Zhu said. Are there that many desolate beasts this time? A level 8 desolate beast has appeared. At this moment, on the eastern city wall, countless ferocious desolate beasts with razor-sharp claws could be seen surging toward the wall like a pitch-black flood, without a moment's hesitation. The city wall trembled violently under the beast's assault. All along the wall, every soldier in the city was giving their all, unleashing powerful spiritual energy in a desperate attempt to push the beasts back. But the sheer number of desolate beasts was overwhelming. The soldiers' efforts were like a drop in the ocean. Chief, there are too many desolate beasts this time. I'm afraid we don't have enough manpower. Qin Tian's adjutant reported anxiously. Qin Tian clenched his fists, his face dark and grim. Adjutant, even if it's not enough, we have to hold them off with our lives. Have all the volunteers in the city been called up? The adjutant nodded hurriedly. They've all been called up. Once this group of soldiers is exhausted, they'll rotate in. Qin Tian ordered without hesitation. There's no time for rotations. Send everyone up immediately. The black market will be here to help soon. Not daring to delay, the adjutant quickly led the group of spiritual power users, who were originally meant to rotate in, up to the wall to join the fight against the desolate beasts. With this added force, the beasts' assault was somewhat contained, and their advance noticeably slowed down. But as time passed, the spiritual energy of these low-level users depleted rapidly. The situation was on the verge of spiraling out of control. Just as he saw that this group was about to collapse and was preparing to step in himself, the adjutant beside him suddenly said, Chief, the people from the black market are here. Hearing this, Qin Tian breathed a sigh of relief. Have them step in and replace our men immediately. Qin Tian ordered. Give the order. Then he hurriedly asked, Where is Bao Lai? Where is Bao Lai? I'm here. A voice rang out from below. Bao Lai was seen rushing over from the black market with his subordinates, including a Quan, Scarface, and a Foam, the black-clad men who were punished not long ago. With Bao Lai, a level 8 mental power user, Qin Tian finally felt relieved. But not long after, a massive crash suddenly echoed from the northwest. Look over there. The terrified crowd frantically ran toward the northwest. Looking from afar, the northwestern city wall was being fiercely attacked by a giant, ferocious, desolate beast. This beast was significantly larger than the others. Its hideous face and robust limbs were terrifying. Every impact produced a deafening boom, shaking the city wall and creating massive craters. If this continued, just a few more hits and this section of the wall would collapse. Once the wall is breached, the consequences will be unimaginable. A 1,000-mile dam collapses from an ant hole. Even a small gap would be enough for the horde of desolate beasts to flood in. This is a Tier 8 desolate beast. Qin Tian's eyes widened, staring in shock at the giant monster before him. He quickly used his experience to assess its level. It's a Tier 8, and there are 2 Tier 7 desolate beasts behind it. Someone screamed in terror. Everyone took a deep breath, their faces stiffening. Their eyes were filled with absolute despair and fear. It felt like the apocalypse had arrived. Knowing it was a Tier 8 desolate beast, the soldiers on the wall instantly panicked. A Tier 8 desolate beast. That was an existence capable of destroying a city. Previously, New District 9 only faced 2 Tier 7 desolate beasts, and it was enough to send their forces fleeing miserably. But now, New District 7 was facing 1 Tier 8 and 2 Tier 7 desolate beasts at the same time. It was an absolute nightmare. Bao Lai, you must hold it off. We'll handle the other 2, Qin Tian said as he geared up. Along with a Quan, a Feng, and the 2 Scarfaces, they charged toward the 2 Tier 7 desolate beasts. The 3 of them could confidently handle 1 Tier 7 beast, but facing 2 was beyond their capabilities. The situation was far from optimistic. The other soldiers and mental power users were focused on eliminating the lower-tier desolate beasts. Captain Yiyun was engaged in battle with beasts at another section of the wall and couldn't come to help. Meanwhile, Bao Lai had to face that incredibly powerful Tier 8 desolate beast all by himself. Taking a deep breath, his eyes locked onto the giant monster with unwavering determination. He was ready to go all out. Killing a desolate beast is no easy feat, especially Tier 7 and Tier 8 ones. When fighting a beast of the same level, a mental power user must continuously attack its mind, using successive strikes to gradually wear down its willpower. Only then can it be completely destroyed. Usually, it takes at least 2 or more people of the same level working together, combining their mental power to defeat a beast of the same tier. Another way is to use a higher-level mental power user, leveraging their absolute superiority in mental power to directly obliterate the consciousness of a lower-tier beast. But clearly, in the current situation, Bao Lai couldn't afford to waste his precious mental power on those 2 Tier 7 beasts, because he had to face the much stronger Tier 8 one. However, relying on just one person's strength to kill a Tier 8 desolate beast was still too difficult. But at this moment, they had no other choice. Tu Ling, Bao Lai said sternly, looking ready to face the challenge. On the city wall, the battle looked fierce, but it was actually a war of mental power. The mental power users didn't need to clash directly with the beasts. There were no flashing blades or flying blood, only the deafening booms of the beasts ramming into the wall and the invisible blades of mental power filling the sky. After the previous 2 beast horde attacks, the citizens were no longer as panicked as the first time. Many gathered at the base of the wall, kneeling in sincere prayer, hoping the soldiers could successfully repel this wave. Perhaps fueled by the power of that faith, the mental power users on the wall displayed strength far beyond their usual limits. As every minute and second ticked by, more and more people gathered at the base of the wall. Of course, there were also those who chose to stay home and pray quietly, like Lulu. She stood calmly on the balcony, looking up at the sky, silently praying for Xia Chun's safe return and for everyone in the district to survive this crisis. Lin Shi, using his mental power, clearly observed everything happening on the wall and within the inner city. It seemed human faith could actually enhance the mental power of those being prayed for. However, while the citizens' prayers had some effect, they couldn't completely turn the tide of the battle. Just as Qin Tian and the others were struggling to kill the 2 Tier 7 beasts, Bao Lai was already having a hard time holding on. This is bad. This Tier 8 beast is too strong. I can't kill it. Hurry up and call Brother Lin to help. We'll agree to his conditions. A new wave of impacts began, and the city wall shook violently. Qin Tian immediately ordered others to support Bao Lai, while he used his optical brain to contact Lin Shi. The connection went through, and Qin Tian spoke at lightning speed. We agree to your conditions. Hurry up and help. Lin Shi had been waiting for those words. He immediately set off toward the city wall. Qing Yi, Qing Er, you two stay here and protect Lulu. I'm going out for a bit. Qing Yi and Qing Er were used to taking orders from Lin Shi and simply nodded in agreement. Understood. The terrifying crashes continued. Bao Lai and the others had consumed too much mental power. This Tier 8 beast is too strong. I can't kill it alone. They needed help, and the only person in New District 7 who could help was Lin Shi. As long as Lin Shi made a move, the Tier 8 beast problem would be easily solved. Bao Lai's forehead was drenched in sweat, his eyes showing clear signs of exhaustion. The Tier 8 beast's strength far exceeded their imagination. The pressure on them was mounting. Bao Lai once again channeled his level 8 mental power, forming a sharp, giant blade, and viciously slashed at the Tier 8 beast's head. By now, Bao Lai's mental power was nearly depleted. This attack only managed to stall the beast for less than a dozen seconds. Right after, the Tier 8 beast let out a terrifying roar and continued its ferocious assault on the city wall. Seeing this, a Quan and a Feng beside him didn't hesitate to launch their own mental power attacks. However, their mental power was only at level 7, so the damage was limited. These attacks could only slow down the beast's offensive pace, with each strike lasting a mere 2 or 3 seconds. Just then, a sharp-eyed person suddenly pointed at the beast horde attacking about a kilometer away and shouted, "Look over there! Is that another Tier 8 beast?" Hearing this, everyone looked in the direction he was pointing. In the distance, a massive silhouette was charging toward them at terrifying speed. Its size was identical to the previous Tier 8 desolate beast, clearly another formidable existence. Instantly, fear and despair spread like a plague across the city wall. Everyone's faces turned pale, their hearts filled with endless dread. They realized that facing 2 Tier 8 desolate beasts attacking simultaneously, they had no chance of winning. The wall would fall, and their lives would face an unprecedented threat. It's over. It's over. 2 Tier 8 desolate beasts. We're doomed, someone muttered, trembling. The wall is going to break. What do we do? What do we do? Many others fell into a panic, at a loss for what to do. Sir, should we try firing the cannons again? Qin Tian's adjutant looked anxiously at the battlefield and shouted, "Fire them immediately. Even if it's useless, we have to delay their advance." Qin Tian roared, his voice tinged with despair. Boom, boom, boom. Dense artillery fire echoed across the battlefield. Artillery shells rained down like a storm, targeting the ferocious, desolate beasts. But against the beasts' tough hides, these shells were practically useless, leaving only faint scratches on their bodies. Everyone knew this, but Qin Tian still chose to use heavy firepower to delay the beast's advance, even if just by a little. Combat Team Captain Yian also rushed over from another section of the wall to help. However, even with so many level 7 mental power users, they couldn't stop the advance of a Tier 8 desolate beast. They had used all their strength, mobilizing their mental power, and even taking mental power enhancement drugs, yet they remained powerless against the beast's march. At the same time, Bao Lai was desperately holding off the desolate beast in front of him. The prolonged, large-scale consumption of his mental power left his face pale and his eyes unfocused, making it hard to concentrate. It was a sign that his mental power was on the verge of drying up. Scarface, standing next to Bao Lai, staggered on his feet, clearly exhausted as well. "Where is Brother Lin? Why isn't he here yet?" Bao Lai asked, panting heavily, his voice filled with anxiety and anticipation. "Boss, we can't hold on anymore. Let's run. Our spaceship is ready and can take off at any time." A Feng, a black-clad man beside him, anxiously suggested. "Until the very end, don't talk to me about giving up." Bao Lai snapped, refocusing his resolute gaze outside the wall. The black market was right here. If New District 7 was destroyed, Bao Lai wouldn't exactly be destitute, but losing an entire black market would be a massive blow. He wouldn't be able to recover for years, maybe even over a decade. But against a beast horde of this scale, even if a level 9 mental power user appeared, how long could they hold out before the city fell? Bao Lai's resolve began to waver. It wasn't just Bao Lai. At this moment, most of the people on the wall, including Qin Tian, were severely shaken. They looked at the tide of beasts stretching to the horizon, relentlessly surging toward the city. They watched the Tier 8 desolate beast drawing closer and closer. Could they really hold this city? "Sir, the person you called for is here." A soldier whispered into Qin Tian's ear, his voice deep and steady. Qin Tian snapped out of it and quickly said, "Hurry, Invite him up. Lin Shi followed the soldiers up the wall. Boom. An earth-shattering crash rang out. The outer alloy of the wall shattered, and debris flew everywhere under the Tier 8 beast's immense power. A few more hits, and this entire section of the wall would collapse. The other Tier 8 beast was rapidly charging toward the wall. Lord Lin, please lend us your aid. Qin Tian abandoned all pretense of pride and solemnly pleaded with Lin Shi for help. Qin Tian's adjutant and soldiers were dumbfounded. Previously, they had only seen Qin Tian treat Lin Shi differently when Lin Shi angrily stormed the guard squad. They never expected him to address Lin Shi so respectfully now. Bao Lai also didn't care about his image as a black market boss. Wiping his sweat, he said, Brother Lin, as long as you can resolve this beast wave, we'll agree to whatever conditions you have. Don't worry about the money. We've got it covered. I agree. But I'm warning you now, since you've agreed, you better not go back on your word. Otherwise, you'll regret angering me. Lin Shi drew his sword. Qin Tian quickly patted his chest and guaranteed, absolutely no problem. As long as this beast wave retreats, we will immediately give you what you want. Done, Lin Shi replied, then leaped off the city wall right into the sea of beasts. Brother Lin. Bao Lai tried to stop him, but it was too late. Lin Shi's movements were so fast that no one had time to react. No one expected Lin Shi to do that. They stared wide-eyed, their jaws dropping in shock and disbelief. Even Qin Tian froze for a few seconds before realizing what Lin Shi was doing. Sir, he jumped down, Qin Tian's adjutant said, his voice trembling with disbelief. Idiot, I can see that. Qin Tian regained his composure and hurriedly looked down the wall. But the beast horde was so dense it stretched endlessly, making it impossible to spot a tiny human figure. Boss, what do we do now? Is our backup just gone like that? Is that guy crazy? He actually jumped down. Their hope for a level 9 mental power user's help vanished into thin air. A phone roared in frustration. Just then, amidst the explosions, a small shard of glass suddenly flew over and pierced Feng's chest. A phone looked down. His chest armor had a thumb-sized hole in it. Not only was the armor pierced, but the glass shard was embedded deep into his flesh. Seeing a Feng suddenly injured, Bao Lai was both shocked and overjoyed. It's Brother Lin. He's still alive. At that moment, someone cried out, Look, there's someone in the beast horde. Lin Shi had experimented with using mental power to hunt desolate beasts in the wilderness. Against low-tier beasts, using mental power was quite easy. But facing Tier 5 beasts and above, it consumed a significant amount of mental power. Lin Shi relied on the rapid calculation ability of his gene-enhanced brain. He quickly calculated that to kill a Tier 8 desolate beast, the mental power consumed would equal 1/5 of the total mental power of someone who had just broken through to level 9. This consumption rate was simply too high. Therefore, compared to using mental power, he preferred a more direct approach to hunting beasts. After embedding the Tier 6 beast core he hunted in the wilderness into the sword hilt he bought from the black market auction, Lin Shi felt a powerful surge of energy emanating from it. In an instant, a beam sword over 3 meters long shot out from the hilt in Lin Shi's hand. Lin Shi raised the beam sword and slashed horizontally at the desolate beast blocking his path. With a swish, the beast's 2 legs were cleanly severed after a flash of white light. Lin Shi quickly dodged a swipe from another beast, stomped hard on the ground, leaped high into the air, and spun around, causing over a dozen surrounding beasts to collapse simultaneously. At this moment, someone on the wall finally spotted Lin Shi. Look, there's someone down there. A soldier pointed down and shouted. Who is it? Oh my God, there really is someone. Whoa, is that guy holding a sword? He's using a sword to kill the beasts. The soldiers stared in awe at Lin Shi below. Is that a god of war? A soldier muttered. Ever since desolate beasts appeared on the Sanlian continent, it wasn't that there hadn't been talented individuals who hunted them. 10,000 years ago, the god of war Qing Zhao wielded a silver spear, charging into the beast hordes, leaving mountains of beast corpses wherever he went. But since then, no one had been able to hunt desolate beasts as effortlessly as Qing Zhao. Because the strength, speed, and defense of the desolate beasts were simply too overwhelming. Ordinary people couldn't possibly stand against them. And with raw materials controlled by the Federation headquarters, ordinary people couldn't unlock their genes, nor could they face the beasts head-on. Now, seeing someone slaughtering desolate beasts so easily left them deeply moved and astonished. Qin Tian, Bao Lai, and the others also looked down, shock and awe clearly written on their faces. Who exactly is he? More and more people on the wall noticed Lin Shi. It was impossible not to. Lin Shi wielded a beam sword over 3 meters long, slaughtering beast after beast. Wherever the sharp blade went, beasts fell. This scene was truly too shocking. These soldiers and warriors had dreamed since childhood of facing and destroying desolate beasts themselves. Desolate beasts were the greatest threat to humanity on the Sanlian continent. They always dreamed of personally wiping out and eradicating all the beasts. But it was only a dream. Yet now, someone wielding the sword of their dreams had appeared, slaughtering the beasts. This feeling was indescribable. Lin Shi moved like lightning, weaving around the Tier 8 desolate beasts. The beam sword danced in the air, instantly clearing out the surrounding beasts. At this moment, the glow of his beam sword began to dim, clearly running out of energy. Without hesitation, he quickly replaced it with the only Tier 7 beast core he had taken from a carcass, then charged at the Tier 8 beast that Bao Lai had already significantly weakened. The Tier 8 beast sensed the danger coming from Lin Shi. It stopped attacking the wall and ferociously swung its giant pincers at him. The speed of the swing was so fast that the people on the wall couldn't even see it clearly. Many broke out in a cold sweat for Lin Shi. A deafening boom echoed. Under the immense power of the Tier 8 beast, the pincers created a deep crater, sending rubble flying everywhere. But when the dust settled, Lin Shi was nowhere to be seen in the crater. At some point, Lin Shi had appeared on the beast's back. The beam sword flashed, piercing straight into its head. Everyone could only guess Lin Shi's position based on the flash of the beam sword and the collapsing beast. But his speed was simply too fast for ordinary people, even those using mental power. Most of them couldn't keep up with his movements. But they still heard the thud of the Tier 8 beast falling. As the massive carcass hit the ground, cheers erupted from this section of the wall, completely different from the other areas. People on other sections of the wall didn't know what was happening. In the midst of battle, they turned to look, only to see a crowd of cheering soldiers. They couldn't understand why these people were so thrilled in the face of imminent danger. After killing the Tier 8 beast, Lin Shi directly ripped its head open and surprisingly found a beast core inside. Retrieving the beast core, Lin Shi quickly cut open the bellies of the high-tier beasts he had killed nearby, collecting a total of 4 beast cores. At this moment, the beast horde from outside surged in. Lin Shi retracted his sword and headed toward the second Tier 8 beast. Although Tier 8 beasts were strong in power and speed, their massive size meant they could never be as agile as Lin Shi, who had unlocked his Tier 8 genes. Without expending much effort, Lin Shi slew the second Tier 8 beast with his beam sword. After that, he began killing the other desolate beasts. As each beast fell, more rushed in from behind. Lin Shi's tiny figure amidst the beast horde was like an immortal killing machine, reaping the lives of the beasts one by one. On the wall, more and more soldiers who were rotated out to rest witnessed Lin Shi slaughtering the beasts. All of them stared intently at him, afraid to miss a single heroic moment. They nervously followed his every move while silently praying he could wipe out the entire horde. By the time hundreds of beasts in this area were annihilated and everyone on the wall regained their senses, less than half an hour had passed. The beast horde was so dense that Lin Shi barely needed to move. He just kept hacking and slashing with his sword. In this battle, Lin Shi also found this beam sword hilt to be incredibly useful. Though very light, as long as a high-tier beast core was used, its absolute sharpness was in no way inferior to a battle axe infused with origin power. The length of the beam sword could also be adjusted at will. In the ever-changing battlefield, this gave Lin Shi quite an advantage. When Lin Shi finally stopped, there wasn't a single desolate beast left within a 1,000-meter radius. At this moment, someone on the wall shouted, "God of War!" That first shout acted like a domino effect. The other soldiers in the area were instantly fueled by excitement and enthusiasm. They chanted in unison, "Mighty God of War! Long live the God of War! God of War! God of War!" The deafening cheers rolled like ocean waves, echoing across the city wall. Qin Tian snapped out of his daze amidst the chanting. Qin Tian and Bao Lai looked at each other, both seeing the gravity and shock in the other's eyes. But now wasn't the time to overthink. Although the threat on this side had been resolved, there were still at least a few thousand beasts waiting to be dealt with in other directions. Qin Tian immediately ordered his subordinates to shift the battlefield, leaving only a few people to guard this area. Before leaving, Qin Tian looked down from the wall and saw Lin Shi searching for beast cores among the carcasses. His eyes were still filled with awe. So, humans could actually be this powerful? As for Lin Shi, after searching all the carcasses, he harvested 109 beast cores. In this battle, he consumed 19 cores for the sword. Adding the ones he had collected earlier, he now had exactly 100 cores left, including one Tier 8 core. This haul was incredibly rich. But the more beast cores Lin Shi had, the more worthless they seemed to him. They were small, numerous, and couldn't be stored in his spatial dimension. Lin Shi took a bag out of his spatial dimension and stuffed it full with the 100 beast cores. Looking at the heavy bag in his hand, the corner of Lin Shi's mouth twitched up slightly. Then, to the soldier's astonishment, he leaped up from the ground and landed back on the city wall. He only left one sentence, "Tell Qin Tian I'm leaving," before casually walking into the inner city. Because Lin Shi had killed the 2 Tier 8 beasts, the highest tier beasts remaining in the other areas were only Tier 6, which were quickly wiped out by Qin Tian and his men. This beast wave, which could have threatened the entirety of New District 7, had now retreated, leaving behind a body count more than double the previous 2 waves. Hearing that the beast horde had retreated, the praying citizens below the wall let out cheers of survival. Not long after, news of a god of war appearing in the inner city spread everywhere. This brought boundless hope to the people of New District 7, who had been worrying about the next beast attack. They believed that as long as the god of war was here, they would definitely be able to protect this city. News of the god of war quickly spread throughout New District 7, and even to other districts. The appearance of the god of war brought immense moral support to the people of New District 7. Everyone began actively repairing the city walls, awaiting the god of war's return. The day after the beast horde retreated, Qin Tian, Bao Lai, and Tu Ling met in the central district office. Qin Tian sat at the head of the table, looked at Bao Lai and Tu Ling, and spoke with a serious expression. "Mr. Tu Ling, you might not know why I called you here. Let me explain." Qin Tian poured Tu Ling a cup of water and said, "Yesterday, the beast horde was incredibly ferocious. We faced an unprecedented challenge. Not only did a Tier 8 beast appear, but there were also 2 Tier 7 beasts. We were forced to ask Lin Shi for help. Because of the urgent situation, Bao Lai and I agreed to give him the high-energy explosives." Hearing this, Tu Ling smiled knowingly and said, "District Chief, you don't need to feel guilty or worried. The situation was truly critical. Without Lin Shi's help, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Therefore, I completely understand your decision." Qin Tian nodded and continued, "Thank you for understanding. But I called you here today not just about the high-energy explosives. Wait a moment, let me contact a few of our friends." Qin Tian opened a video call, connecting with all the allies in their newly formed alliance. Due to the aftermath of the beast horde, the other district chiefs were all busy handling the fallout. The North District Chief couldn't be reached, but the rest connected successfully. "Qin Tian, what's the matter?" Peng Yu, the chief of New District 5, spoke first. Qin Tian took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Gentlemen, a god of war has appeared in our district." Hearing this, the other 4 were startled. "A god of war? How is that possible? Did the Federation headquarters god of war come to New District 7? Bai Gan, the chief of New District 6, was shocked. He had sent his son, Bai Ju, to New District 7 because it had the black market and Bao Lai, making it safer. Qin Tian knew they had misunderstood and quickly explained, "It's not that old nobody from the Federation headquarters. It's Lin Shi. All by himself, using a beam sword auction from the black market, he slaughtered thousands of desolate beasts in half an hour, including 2 Tier 8 beasts." "What? Are you telling the truth?" "Impossible." Everyone stared at the screen in shock, their jaws dropping. One person slaughtering thousands of beasts in half an hour? What kind of concept was that? This far exceeded their understanding of human capabilities. Furthermore, among those thousands of beasts, there were 2 Tier 8 ones. The video feeds seemed to freeze as everyone sat motionless, their expressions varying. Some looked doubtful, thinking it was a joke. Some frowned, calculating the possibilities. Others closed their eyes, trying to calm down. One person, half an hour, thousands of beasts. They understood these words individually, but put together, they felt completely alien. Qin Tian smiled bitterly. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, even I wouldn't have believed it. I'm telling the truth. Bao Lai witnessed it too, along with many soldiers and warriors. I'm sure this news will quickly spread throughout the Federation. You don't need to doubt the authenticity of this. Bao Lai and I contacted you to discuss how we should handle Lin Shi. Honestly, he's too strong. So terrifyingly strong that it scares me a little. Just then, Peng Yu, the chief of New District 5 sitting at the head of his table, suddenly burst into laughter through the screen. The others turned to look at Peng Yu, their faces full of confusion. Peng Yu laughed and said, "This is good news. Incredibly good news." "Peng Yu, what are you trying to say?" Peng Yu stopped laughing, his eyes flashing with greed and excitement. "Lin Shi is that strong, and he needs what we have. So why shouldn't I use him as a sharp blade?" "What? You mean? He might not officially be a god of war, but I'll treat him as one. The Federation headquarters has a god of war, but now I have one too. Moreover, my god of war is younger and stronger." Everyone was stunned. "Peng Yu, you want to—" Peng Yu smirked, revealing a cunning smile. "Once this battle with the beast horde is over, even if we suffer losses, the Federation headquarters won't be much better off. At that time, if I lead my new god of war straight to the Federation headquarters, they will definitely send out that old god of war, Yi Zhan. In front of everyone, they will see the old god of war defeated by the new one. When that happens, the Federation headquarters morale will plummet, and I'll take the opportunity to conquer District 1. Peng Yu's voice echoed in the meeting room. Excitement and anticipation appeared on everyone's faces. Baigan, the chief of New District 6, asked worriedly, "But what if Lin Shi can't beat the old god of war? After all, the old god of war's strength is undeniable." Peng Yu frowned and scoffed, "Humph. So what if he loses? He's just a pawn in my hand. I can use him to wear down the Federation headquarters' strength and then reap the benefits. As long as it succeeds, I will seize total control of the Federation. But what if he breaks free from your control? What if he betrays us and surrenders to the Federation headquarters? We'd be attacked from both sides." Qin Tian was worried about this. Mr. Tu Ling spoke up. "Someone that strong absolutely cannot be controlled. We can only cooperate with him." He made 3 demands for materials, 3 items from the Federation headquarters. This proves he doesn't side with them. Furthermore, his 3rd demand was not to harm ordinary people. This shows he is soft-hearted and kind. As long as we exploit this, long-term cooperation with him won't be difficult. Peng Yu nodded. Tu Ling is right. Don't worry, he contacted me first. No matter what faction is behind him or what his goals are, it benefits me for now. At least until I conquer the Federation headquarters, he and I are in the same boat." Everyone pondered for a moment, then said, "I agree. I agree too. Baigan, isn't your son in New District 7? Have your son make contact with Lin Shi." Everyone looked at Baigan. Baigan frowned, then replied, "Understood." The inter-district video conference ended. Meanwhile, Lin Shi was hosting Xia Chun in the villa's laboratory. His eyes were focused on the material in his hands, as if it were the only thing in the world that existed. "You can just stay here. Who knows when the next beast wave will hit? My villa is spacious enough, adding you won't be a problem. Besides, I've already exposed myself. Even if they know about our relationship, it doesn't matter," Lin Shi said casually while busily crafting a container. Hearing this, Xia Chun was momentarily stunned but quickly regained his composure. He watched intently as Lin Shi took out a newly finished container, his heart filled with admiration. "Am I bothering you too much?" Xia Chun asked softly, his eyes never leaving Lin Shi. "Not at all," Lin Shi replied without looking up. He carefully placed the container on a tray, then walked over to the sink to wash his hands. An indescribable feeling welled up in Xia Chun's heart. He felt that Lin Shi truly saw him as family, just like Qin Shuang and the others. That feeling made Xia Chun feel warm. Xia Chun relayed the information he had received to Lin Shi. There are rumors outside that a god of war has appeared in the inner city, but since they haven't seen you, most still think it's the god of war from the headquarters coming to District 7 for backup. Whatever, let them misunderstand. The truth will come out sooner or later, Lin Shi said indifferently as he dried his hands. He couldn't exactly go out into the streets and shout that he was the one who repelled the beast wave. That would be too stupid. Xia Chun pondered and said, I was thinking, could this newly rising alliance use this opportunity to build momentum for you? Acknowledge you as the Federation's true god of war and deny the previous one? If so, this new alliance has some pretty cunning people. When the time comes, they'll use the god of war's name to start a civil war. They'll seize the initiative, and you'll be dragged into this war. Lin Shi turned to look at Xia Chun and asked, You mean I should continue cooperating with them? The high-energy explosives are almost in our hands. Do we still need to cooperate with them? Xia Chun pushed up his glasses and nodded. We don't know how much energy is needed to destroy the spatial rift. Once we start, we must ensure the spatial rift is destroyed in a single blast. Therefore, it's best to be thoroughly prepared. Lin Shi asked Qing Zhao in the treasure bowl, Hey, if we want to destroy the spatial rift, how many explosives do we need? The spatial rift contains extremely powerful and chaotic energy. Theoretically, we just need to use explosives to disrupt the spatial rift so it collapses on itself. As for exactly how many explosives are needed, I'm not an expert in this field, so I can't calculate it precisely. But definitely, the more the better. Then we'll prepare more of these explosives. We have to make sure we destroy the spatial rift in one blast, Lin Shi concluded. Xia Chun said, Let's put the internal conflict aside for now. I'm guessing other districts will also need you to step in against the beast waves. When that time comes, you just have to ask, and they will definitely give it to you. It's just that our intentions will be quickly exposed. It doesn't matter. Push them into a corner, and even if they know our intentions, they'll still beg to give us what we want. Then I'll have to trouble you. Xia Chun felt a bit guilty because he was doing so little compared to Lin Shi. Lin Shi seemed to notice Xia Chun's mood and stepped forward to pat his shoulder. You've already done a lot. All right, go pack your things and move in here. Lin Shi left the laboratory. When Lin Shi stepped out, Qing Yi had been waiting at the door for a while. Master, someone just contacted your optical brain. It's the district chief. Qing Yi handed the optical brain to Lin Shi. Lin Shi opened it and called back. A second later, he was connected to Qin Tian. On the optical brain screen, Qin Tian said respectfully, My lord, the high-energy explosives you requested are in the wilderness. When do you plan to pick them up? In the wilderness? Where exactly? Lin Shi asked, slightly surprised. About 2,000 kilometers away. It's a secret weapons cache we established. So, it had to be placed in a remote, desolate area to avoid detection. Can you transport that high-energy explosive back? We could before, but now there are too many desolate beasts in the wilderness. Plus, it's been raining continuously on the Sanlian continent for a month. Flight paths are affected by the heavy rain, so we're not confident we can transport it back. Ever since the beast horde rioted, it had been raining on the Sanlian continent for nearly a month. Sometimes it poured like a waterfall, other times it was just a light drizzle. The entire world was shrouded in dense fog. Previously, Qin Tian would send people using spatial containers on specialized aircraft to transport weapons to that wilderness cache. But now, transporting things back was exponentially more difficult. Not to mention, the number of desolate beasts in the wilderness was now dozens of times higher than before. The weather alone posed a massive obstacle for aerial travel. If they went by land, they'd be attacked by beasts before getting very far. Let me go. Xia Chun stepped out of the laboratory behind Lin Shi. District Chief, just give me the location of the high-energy explosives cache, and I will definitely bring them back. Seeing Xia Chun, Qin Tian didn't look too surprised. Clearly, he knew Xia Chun and Lin Shi had a close relationship and assumed this was Lin Shi's intention. Naturally, Qin Tian had no reason to refuse. He nodded and said, Then I'll trouble you. I'll have my men prepare immediately and notify you of the departure time once everything is ready. Xia Chun replied, Understood. The call ended. Lin Shi looked at Xia Chun. He felt Xia Chun wanted to fetch the explosives because he felt he wasn't being helpful enough. Previously, It was Xia Chun who reminded him not to rush, but now Xia Chun was the anxious one. Xia Chun smiled faintly. Don't worry, I'll definitely bring the items back quickly. Lin Shi sighed, patted Xia Chun's shoulder, and instructed, your safety comes first. Xia Chun nodded, showing he understood. 2 hours later, a soldier entered Lin Shi's villa to inform Xia Chun that the aircraft was ready and could depart at any time. Qin Tian is certainly efficient when he makes a promise. I'm off. Please look after Lu Lu for me. Xia Chun bid farewell to Lin Shi. All right, Lin Shi nodded. Xia Chun then got into the combat team's specialized vehicle. Soon, the vehicle arrived at the specialized aircraft landing pad in the central district. A few hours later, the aircraft landed in a clearing not far from the military cache. Xia Chun took a deep breath, jumped off the aircraft, and sprinted toward the military cache. Along the way, Xia Chun used his mental power to carefully avoid the desolate beasts, eventually reaching the cache. The military cache was located underground, storing firearms and ammunition. This location could evade mental power scans and other surveillance equipment, making it extremely secretive. The soldier piloting the spaceship had shown Xia Chun the entrance and how to navigate underground. Thanks to this, Xia Chun easily entered the military cache and found the high-energy explosives that Qin Tian and his cohorts had hidden here. Here, Xia Chun also discovered another type of thermal weapon, with power equal to, or even greater than, the explosives Qin Tian's group had hidden. There were no guards here, because having people meant dealing with food and rest, which would make the cache less concealed and easier to discover. Precisely because it was unmanned, Xia Chun had room to act. Hesitating for only a second, Xia Chun stored those weapons into his spatial dimension as well. Just as Xia Chun was about to return to the surface, he suddenly heard a tragic scream echoing from the surface not far away. The scream was brief and then abruptly stopped. Xia Chun instantly understood what was happening. He quickly left the military cache and used his mental power to scan the area where the spaceship had landed. He saw that the pilot controlling the spaceship was dead. Lin Shi's villa in New District 7. Today was the second day of Xia Chun's absence. Bai Ju came to visit, bringing many gifts. Boss, do you like this green drink too? What a coincidence. It was my favorite drink back home. Bai Ju enjoyed the cold drink prepared by Qing Yi, looking cheerful. Lin Shi nodded, his eyes glancing toward the door. Xia Chun still hadn't returned. According to Qin Tian, a round trip to that military cache usually took about 10 hours. However, the rain and fog would affect the spaceship's speed and even throw it off course, so it might take longer. But it had been over 17 hours now. Lin Shi tried to contact Xia Chun via the container's long-distance communication function. Just then, his optical brain vibrated. It was a call from Qin Tian. Lin Shi connected. On the optical brain, Qin Tian had a grave expression. I have to tell you some very bad news. The spaceship we sent to bring Xia Chun back from the wilderness has lost contact. Currently, we cannot reach either Xia Chun or the pilot. At this moment, footsteps echoed on the stairs. It was Lu Lu coming down from upstairs. Today, Lu Lu, as usual, had her face covered with a coarse cloth. Seeing Lin Shi had a guest, Lu Lu was about to turn back when she heard Qin Tian's words. Panic flashed in her eyes, and she hurriedly ran down the stairs. Is there news about Xia Chun? Did something happen to him? Bai Ju looked up and saw the panicked Lu Lu. Bai Ju suddenly felt this girl looked familiar. Understanding what Lu Lu was worried about, Lin Shi immediately said, Don't worry, Xia Chun is fine. Qin Tian was taken aback. He looked skeptical, thinking Lin Shi was just comforting her. Lin Shi had to explain. Xia Chun has a container capable of long-distance communication. I just contacted him. The message Xia Chun sent was short and concise, just 3 words. I am fine.